WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Welcome to the Thursday edition. It's the Thursday edition of Reality Check. We're at the end of the Reality Check week. As you know, Thursdays is our last day during the week. We take Fridays off and then we come back to you on Monday after a 3 day weekend. Definitely not a weekend, definitely not time off for the your reality check team. So got to get geared up, got to get everything together on Friday so we can get ready for the following week. But welcome to the program. Welcome to this Thursday edition. There is no Philadelphia City Council live today, of course, because Philadelphia City Council is on summer break. So hopefully they'll get back soon. We do expect them back in September. It seems that they will be back on site. They will be back on site. There'll probably be limitations to that because of the pandemic, but they'll be back on site in City Hall chambers, in council chambers in City Hall in September. So definitely looking forward to that and seeing what they have on tap as well. But I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check. And you can catch me at Ellison Report on Twitter. Yeah, on Twitter. And hashtag Reality Check too. If you'd like to start some conversation, you want to start something, just go ahead and do that at hashtag Reality Check. At Ellison Report on Twitter.com. Feel free to tag me there. So we have open phone lines. We got open phone lines, I understand, for this next hour. 215-634-8065. 8663-610900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So feel free to call in and let us know what's on your mind, what you're thinking about, what's happening in the news that's catching your attention, and the issues that are important to you today. So this is just your daily reminder about homicides in Philadelphia, and just letting you know what the homicide rate is now. Unfortunately, in Philadelphia, it keeps going up. Every time we give this number, it's increased. Like I've never had a day yet in 2021 where it's like stayed flat, where I haven't seen an increase. Like every day I give the Philadelphia homicide rate number, it's gone up. So now we're at 3. I think last time I gave you the daily homicide figure, it was 327. The latest official count is 329 homicides in Philadelphia. There have been 329 murders in the city of Philadelphia in 2021 alone. So we're not up on Labor Day yet. It feels like, I don't know. Are we going to hit 400 homicides by the time we get the Labor Day weekend? We don't know. But we're at 329 homicides in Philadelphia, and that is 26% more murders than this same time last year. It shows no signs of slowing down, no signs of abatement. We had 261 homicides the same time last year. So on August 11th, 2020 was 261 homicides. Now we have 329 homicides. That's almost 100 more homicides than what we had last year. So that's like really horrific. It's just also outrageous. It's just really outrageous. It's also outrageous that the mayor of Philadelphia still does bi-weekly gun violence briefings, and that what's even more outrageous is that people accept that. People accept that. They feel like that's okay. Well, that's I guess we're getting a briefing. That's just so offensive on so many levels, and it's so offensive, the lack of urgency and the lack of public compassion that your mayor, the mayor of Philadelphia, shows. That's y'all's mayor. For folks who either voted for him or just bothered not to vote at all in the last mayoral election. We know there's a lot of people out there that did not bother to vote in the last mayoral election. So that level of incompetence and lack of compassion, lack of empathy for a city in crisis, that really has to stop. So and honestly, on a more psychological level, it's what really ails Philly the most. It's just this uncaring mindset, particularly from government officials, from people who are just not, taking people never. And it's been like this for ages, just never take people's pain seriously. And so, we're ended up with situations here where, we could hit 600 murders in Philadelphia by the end of the year if we keep it up at this rate. And so, and Philadelphia clearly has a mayor. I don't care if he's listening, but he clearly has a mayor who, one, has forgotten that he's a mayor, and two, just does not care. Like, he just doesn't seem like he's not showing it. And so, he won't call a state of emergency. He won't, do something. He won't do weekly gun violence briefings, at least. I mean, at a minimum, do some kind of, like, emergency joint crisis task force. And that just doesn't fall on him. That also falls on other elected officials as well. Many folks missing the mark on this in terms of response and setting a tone and getting us to a all hands on deck approach that could really be a key in reducing this violence in a significant way. So it's just not, especially with all these, like, federal dollars that are coming into the city, and we got more dollars that are coming into Philadelphia as well. With the passage of these big infrastructure bills in Washington D.C. So we want to watch that money and track it as well. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. If you didn't hear already, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So we're getting early indications of census estimates, of 2020 census estimates, and what that will look like. What we do know is that this is the first time in history where there was a decrease in white population. This is the first time that the portion of white people in the United States could dip below 60%, and the under 18 population in the United States is more than likely to be majority non-white. We expected this, but we're getting some early indications based on the first results, the first data results from the U.S. Census is really important. So, and this will help determine where we go, where we move forward as a country, what our future looks like. It will also help explain and help us understand more clearly the politics of the moment we find ourselves in. It will help us understand, for example, intensifying white racial animus at the polls and white racial animus manifesting in all sorts of ugly ways, like the January 6th insurrection or, the election of Donald Trump on 2016. There are a lot of white people out there. This is not on no level is this a racist statement. This is, like, just based on pure fact, right? So, but there are a lot of white people out there, not all. There's some who are fine with these new developments and find that we're becoming a much more diverse nation, a much more multicultural nation, and they're comfortable with that, and they should be. But there is obviously a segment of a fairly significant and dominant, rather vocal, and in some cases armed segment of the white population that is not very comfortable with these changes. And we see it manifesting in the politics, right? And things are tense. But this is the kind of development that the Trump administration was working hard to avoid. This is the main reason they were doing everything in their power to either manipulate the census or to hobble it, to hamper it in so many different ways. And they clearly were not successful enough because, and so, which, interestingly enough, I mean, if the Trump administration was really successful in, making this 2020 census ineffective, I mean, imagine, like, what kind of numbers we'd be seeing, like if they were really successful in underfunding it and preventing census counters from going out into communities and counting. I mean, we probably would not have seen this. This probably would never have revealed itself. But just imagine, like, it could be the drop, and some experts are saying that the drop in white population in the 2020 census could be much more severe, could be much more dramatic than we know, and that's because the Trump administration got in the way of the census. So there could be a lot more white population drop than we will ever know or than we can assess at this moment. So, but those are the first estimates of that are coming out. Um, as far as we are still seeing undercounts, significant undercounts with respect to Black populations and indigenous populations and also Latino populations as well. They're girding for some significant undercounts of Latino populations because Latino populations, particularly Latino migrant populations, were targeted, and so there was a lot of like legal activity taking place. The Trump administration uh, specifically uh, calling out and pointing out and trying to stop census counts of, or if they were was trying to implement some sort of system where, like, okay, well, if you do track migrants, you have to see whether or not they're a citizen or not, et cetera. So we could have a much larger Latino population than we know. We're told that Asians could find their population doubling in the 2020 census. So Asian people right now are about 3% of the or different Asian communities combined, because you have all sorts of different Asian communities, but Asian communities represent about 3% of the total population right now in the U.S., at least from what we know. Or no, I'm sorry, they made up about 3%, at least in the 1990 census. It could be a little bit more right now, or it could have been a little bit more in like the 2010 census. But anyway, that could all double in the 2020 census. We could see Asian population share going up to 6% or more in the 2020 census. Now, let's get to the Black population. The Black population is always undercounted in these census takes, and the undercounting in the census, this happens all the time. This happens every 10 years. The undercounting of Black populations in the census is all about weaponizing the census against Black people. The census is something that has to take place. The Constitution mandates it, but undercounting Black people in the census is something that is deliberately done. Is deliberately done every 10 years because it keeps very critical dollars, federal dollars, and resources from reaching our communities, and from reaching communities that need it the most. So, and it's also a way to continue to diminish Black political power. It's a way to contain Black votes. So that's why those Black votes are really important. They weaponize census grabs. They spend millions of dollars in political campaigns. They wage war on voting rights. People are still out here. Black folks are still out here talking about why my vote, why I ain't voting, why my vote count. It's like, but people are spending lots of time and putting in lots of energy and resources to ensure that you don't vote, that you don't flex political muscle. The census throughout the years has been one of the ways to do that. That's why it's so important for our communities to mobilize and to maximize every opportunity to fill out that census form and to fill out the census application, because what we're seeing now in the 2020 census is that the Black population share is just going to stay flat at 12.5%. That's according to the 2020 census. We know there are more Black people out there. I've actually talked to staff, researchers at census off record. I remember a few years ago, and they were like, based on some of our data assessments, like when we, look at what we've captured, from the forms, from the the applications that people submit, and also from when we put those census takers out in the streets, we know then they institute some other formulas, and then they find that it's probably like more like 16% of the population is Black, but we have to go with this official 13% estimate. And so, but yeah, population now we're just holding steady at 12.5. So it's not even like 13% anymore. It's 12.5%. So those woeful undercounts, and so which means that we're going to get less resources, going less federal dollars. We're talking about over $1 trillion in federal money that's specifically directed by the census, and we're going to miss out on some of those dollars, right? And so, and that's all by design. That's all deliberate. Like that's what they do to one, keep federal monies, to keep federal appropriations out of our communities, out of our pockets, and two, to diminish our electoral power, our voting power, to give us fewer representatives, or to give us less representation in our legislatures, to also do all sorts of other shady things as far as redistricting and gerrymandering is concerned. So it all plays out in all sorts of sinister ways. That's why it's very important to mobilize census taking every 10 years. It's really important to mobilize the Black community aggressively during census time, as energetically as we do for presidential election years. It's such a critical and such a crucial thing. And a lot of folks, especially during pandemic, and thank you for that, did take the census. They did participate in that census, but there are a lot of us out there who did not. And so, there's a reckoning now with that. So Black population share, according to, at least based on early estimates, what we know, we don't know how severe the undercount was, but the Black population share likely to hold steady at around 12.5%. So we're not seeing like an increase. Seeing an increase for other groups, such as the Asian population and perhaps even the Latino population. But even there's an undercount with the Latino population, but the Black population share, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out in future elections, and how that'll play out in terms of how, determining what census directed dollars go to what community. But we'll see. But obviously that's still a developing story. Let me see. Whites expected to account for over half the growth in only 5 states, plus the District of Columbia, which is not a state. Technically, it's like a city-state hybrid. So Washington, D.C. is no longer a chocolate city. So it's interesting, right? Because like whites are taking up the greater share of growth in Washington, D.C. But in 26 states, the number of whites has declined. And I think it's like up to 6 states, and the district could have majorities of people of color. So the district will still have majorities of people of color. And then you also throw in Nevada and Maryland, which are increasingly getting much more diverse. So at this rate, it's projected that the white population will fall below 50% nationally around 2045. Between 2015 and 2060, the Hispanic and Asian populations will double in size. And the multiracial population will triple due to immigration and also birth rates as well. So that's why it's really important to follow these trends. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. I would love to get your thoughts on that. 215, it's a very important development. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. And I know there will be people out there concerned about a flat Black population growth rate. There were people out there concerned about it. And what's going to be interesting is like the paradox of like, Black people who are going to be concerned about like undercounts in the census and about the Black population growth rate staying flat, but then they don't want to get vaccinated. So it's like, and then we do know that like Black people have the highest COVID-19 death rate. That's something else that came out. Associated Press did an analysis that came out several days ago. There are nearly 213 deaths per 100,000 Black people in the United States right now. 213 COVID-19 deaths per 100,000 black people compared to under 180 deaths per 100,000 white people. So right now, black people have the highest COVID-19 death rate in the country, highest COVID-19 death rate in the country, compared to all the other demographic groups, including whites, Latinos, and Asians. I don't have a count or I don't have an estimate as far as indigenous groups are concerned, but there's very high death rates in black communities for folks. The highest are for those of us who are 85 years of age and older. But what's also very concerning is like we have the highest rate of compared to all the other demographic groups, we have the highest rate of young people who are dying from COVID-19 when you compare us to Latinos, whites, and Asians. There are about, like, for black people between the ages of 40 to 49 years, there are 78 deaths per 100,000 black people. For 30 to 39 years, there's 28 deaths per 100,000 people. So when you compare that, it's also very high for Latinos as well. So black and Latino, like youth rate, COVID-19, younger people rates, like non-elderly people rates are very high compared to whites and also Asians as well. You don't see such high levels of COVID-19 death rates in those age brackets, in those younger age brackets. So it's like this is, when we're talking about the black population and where it stands at this moment, getting hit very hard by COVID-19. So I'm not sure why folks are still kind of on the fence and refusing to get vaccinated, but then you're going to be concerned about not getting federal dollars, not getting the kind of support because of an undercount in the census. That just doesn't match. Also, I want you to stand with WURD, the only black-owned talk radio station in Pennsylvania. Did you know that you can join the onWURD movement and amplify voices of the black community as a digital member for as low as $5 per month? Yes, you can. Visit WURDradio.com or call 215-425-7875. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back with more open phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, WURD family, did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to WURDradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today.
Get in and get seen at the Einstein Orthopedics Fracture Care Clinic. If you think you've broken a bone or have been told by your doctor that you have a fracture, the Einstein Fracture Care Clinic offers same-day, in-person, or telehealth appointments. We don't just give you peace of mind. Einstein Orthopedics provides answers when you need them. Visit einstein.edu/fracturecare to learn more.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get barrier-free COVID-19 testing and vaccination this week. Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue, Tuesday, August 10th and Thursday, August 12th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturday, August 14th from 12 noon till 4 p.m. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
All right, phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Census Bureau redistricting data expected to be released today. And so we're also expecting like new state political maps. And so those political maps are going to determine elections in the future moving forward. This is a game that Republicans, that conservatives, Confederates are very good at. So especially as we're looking at white population decline, so there's going to be a political backlash to this. They're basically, looking for ways that they can still stay in control. There's a fear of a loss of control. So that's why we got to pay attention to all this information, all this news coming out about census estimates and about white population decline. Also, what's happening with other groups. And the more information we see, the more data we see about white population decline, the more frantic you're going to see Republicans, Confederates, white nationalists get about their political condition. And so there's going to be a big war over political maps, over the design, the shape of, for example, congressional districts. There's all sorts of deadlines coming up in the fall for states to create or enact new legislative district boundaries. How those maps turn out could determine what Congress looks like over the next decade. When you have that kind of activity, because remember, Confederates are in charge. Republicans, Confederates, white nationalists, they're in charge of most of the state legislatures in the United States right now. That's why you got to pay attention to, including in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, for example. That's what Republicans are in charge. That's why and Republicans are not friends of black political power. Republicans do not want to see black people collectively flex political muscle. They just don't want that. That doesn't work in their interest. That's not for them. Those numbers do not help them win, do not help them on any level. That's what they've determined. So they play games like, voter suppression, restricting voting rights, also redistricting or carving out political maps in such a way that it dilutes black political power. So, that's a statement of fact. That is a statement of fact. That's going on right now. It's been going on for quite some time. So, how these numbers flesh out and then what happens in the map game will determine what Congress looks like over the next decade. If Republicans are successful at retaking if they're successful based on voting restrictions and also based on playing games with political maps, if Democrats lose the House and the Senate in 2022 next year, they're not going to get it back. They are not going to get it back. So we had Daniel Moody on here one time make that statement. That's how urgent a participation in the 2022 election is. And so I keep talking to a lot of Democratic strategists, and I'm getting concerned. These are folks who get paid lots of money to win elections, and they're just shrugging and saying, well, the party in the White House loses seats. Y'all need to do your damn job and make sure you win. You keep the insurrectionists at bay in 2022. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. We have Cliff out of Connecticut who's calling in for a reality check. Cliff, what's good?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Brother Charles. Here we go again, bro.
Hey,
you can handle it, though. You know what I'm saying? But listen, all right, so everything, and I totally agree with everything you're saying. So basically what we're saying is that the white supremacists that do exist, correct, and there's white nationalists, and their thing is that they want to maintain their power. And with the increase of different diversities in ethnic groups, that they are fearful that they're going to lose their power, which makes sense. Yeah. So in order to reduce that and combat that, is it fair to say that they're trying to reduce the population of minority people?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you know, and one way that they do that. Go ahead, Cliff. Finish that thought.
So they do it in various ways, but this is the point I'm just trying to make out, and I want to put emphasis on this: is that, you know, again, one way that they can do it, I believe, you know, there's racism, and that agenda is effective in every aspect of life, and so, but for some reason, you know, and this is where you and I differ, I believe that there could possibly be white supremacists, white nationalists as scientists. But for some reason, people don't believe that. I'm saying that...
I mean, that's always a possibility. I mean, look at what the Third Reich was doing before and during World War II. And after World War II, many of those Nazi scientists ended up, you know, being retained by other countries or hiding off somewhere, you know, including countries like the United States. I mean, the United States took some of those Nazi scientists to help with, you know, to help with their space program with NASA, for example. So yeah, I mean that's always a given. I mean, we don't have.
Okay, so why can't that?
I'd like to see. I mean, we have historical evidence, obviously, that that's happened. I don't know what I would love to see some data, like a poll or a survey of scientists and researchers with, you know, with white nationalists or white supremacist leanings. I guess your point is, oh, you know, the vaccine was developed by white supremacists, and they're trying to.
Absolutely, I'm going to say it's possible. It just isn't possible that. But
how can they? You know, but the thing is, though, Cliff, it's like, where's the evidence? Like, where's your data? You don't have any data. Like, you know, we can speculate all day about any number of issues, but it's like, I'm not going to sit on here speculating and spewing out something that I don't have any data on. It's like, it's probably for the white people that like, I got white neighbors that live next door to me, and I'm sure that, you know, I don't know if they seem nice, but we don't know. We're not in there. We don't know exactly, you know, if they have white nationalists or white supremacist leanings. I want hard data.
And all I'm saying is that even the people that make up this data, if they are white nationalists, they would conspire or they would work in alliance.
So interestingly enough, we do know that the source of much of this disinformation that's circulating online and is persuading people like you who eat it up and don't get vaccinated is from white nationalist organizations.
Okay, great. Okay,
so I mean, why do they need white supremacists or white nationalist scientists and researchers to develop vaccine? A bunch of y'all out there not taking the vaccine. Y'all are already carrying out their agenda. Not getting vaccinated is the most.
That theory.
But Cliff, I have hard data that shows that black people in the United States have the highest COVID-19 death rate right now out of all the demographic groups. We have the highest. And we're still playing this reluctance game.
Okay, Joe. Okay.
And it's like and in the face of that, Cliff, it's still people you want to call in every day. Like, I could talk about everything else. I'm talking about high homicide rates. I'm talking about it. You still want to talk about, you know, you still want to, you know, speculate on, you know, on the vaccine. Like, I say vaccine. I knew as soon as I said vaccine, I said, watch, it's going to be like, folks are going to call in. Probably Cliff's going to call in.
You should have said Cliff.
It's like, we've got all, you want to make this a top black action agenda item when it shouldn't be. When all it has to be is, just like with any major outbreak or epidemic or pandemic, the science is developed. They have been working on vaccines for coronavirus and SARS for quite some time. This was the first time in human history where you actually had groups of scientists and institutions and actual pharmaceutical companies. They actually sat in the same room, virtually or physically or what have you, and shared information. This is the first time that ever happened in the development of something like this, because it was an emergency. That's what you do during an emergency. You get all hands on deck.
That's in the interest of black people.
Cliff, it's not in the interest of black people who are dying at a rapid rate, at a faster rate than everyone else, not to get vaccinated. So that in and of itself is a white supremacist dream. Oh yeah, more black people dying. Shoot, yeah. Let's spew out more information. Let's put it online because, man, these fools is gullible. Let's put on more information online to keep them more and more reluctant, so more of them can die, and then maybe we have fewer black people to count in the next census in 2030. Like, I mean, do you realize that in real time, based on data and evidence we have, there are black people who are dying at a higher, faster rate than everyone else. I mean, everyone else is dying too, but black people are dying the fastest because of at this point, at this stage, we're not getting back. There's a bunch of us still refusing to get vaccinated. So, I mean, that not getting vaccinated at this point is about the most white supremacist thing you can do. Cliff?
Pharmaceutical companies and these pharmacists and these scientists, because they have my best interest. They're really concerned about me living.
Why would they, Cliff, but why would they develop, okay, why would they develop a vaccine that keeps you from getting hospitalized and keeps you from dying? Cliff, I'm going to have to let you go because I'm already run up on time and I got to get some other callers too. But I mean, I appreciate this. I appreciate the speculation. No, I don't appreciate the speculation. I always appreciate, a healthy dose of skepticism and cynicism. We should always be skeptical and cynical. And, you don't want to dive in head first. I mean, you want to make sure you got all the information out there in front of you. We've provided all the information and the data that shows that this is what we need to do to end the pandemic and to get through it. Playing this speculation game and continuing to spew information that gets on a regular routine basis gets roundly refuted. I mean, not just disputed and refuted, but debunked, like on a regular basis. I mean, the fact checkers are working overtime on this, and as well as, prominent researchers and scientists. And I'm seeing like a lot of, black medical experts and researchers as well, refuting a lot of these claims on a regular basis. I mean, we're at that stage where, we all just have to do the right thing. We're the group in the U.S. right now at this moment who are dying at a faster rate, at a much faster rate than everyone else. So, and then we got to worry about, okay, well, what's going to happen when many of our kids go back to school in the fall? Like, that's starting now. And now we're starting to see a larger share of young people going to the hospital. So, I understand your general point. The whole general mission, the philosophy of white supremacy is to wipe out non-white peoples on the planet. I get that. But like right now, it's all the evidence in front of us, all the information we have shows that these vaccines are necessary to end this pandemic, to contain it, to get it under control. So then we can move on to other more important business, like climate crisis, for example. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be right back with more Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Hey there, beautiful. Have you had severe hair loss? Do you have a scalp disorder? Is your hair thinning around the edges and crown? If you answered yes to any of these questions, give us a call at 215-225-2442 to schedule a consultation with Babes Holistic Hair Salon located at 3117 North Broad Street. Babes Holistic Hair Salon is dedicated to improving your inner and outer beauty. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation.
WURD Founders Day. Don't miss our annual Founders Day live broadcast and celebration, Thursday, August 26th, honoring the life and legacy of our founder, Walter P. Lomax Jr., MD, featuring a very special broadcast of a ceremonial street naming for Dr. Lomax from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. at 1800 Wharton Street, the site of his first medical center. Hosted by Charles Ellison. The day will also include a series of virtual panels and conversations exploring health, wealth, and independent media. Start or renew your Forward membership on Founders Day at the special discounted rate of just $80. For more information about WURD Founders Day, visit WURDradio.com. WURD Radio Founders Day is brought to you by Pico, Keystone First, Bank of America, Ready Set Philly, Comcast, Brown's Family ShopRite, Temple University, and Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, 2nd District.
The future depends on teachers. Every day, teachers are shaping our tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the course of history. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future, who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Welcome back. Phone lines are open 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let's go to Mr. Rick out of Germany, calling in for Reality Check. Mr. Rick.
Good day, Charles.
Hey, what's happening?
I think with my life on the edge, I think you there in America might want to consider exodus. I think race war, civil war, and class and economic war, resource war, is on the horizon there in America. And those who have the means should get out while they can.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That's all, man.
Okay, yeah, so those who have the means should get out, but the vast majority of folks don't have the means. They should stay behind, and so we should just go towards exodus and not figure out how to avoid that calamity. When we have all sorts of tools, all sorts of solutions, intellectual capital, I'm not going to subscribe to folks who peddle in pessimism. No disrespect, Mr. Rick. I'm not going to subscribe to that. There's this peddling of pessimism, of hustling pessimism. It's all done. When we have all kinds of solutions and resources, we have more solutions and resources at our fingertips now as a community than we had 50, 60 years ago, and as a civilization than we had just 100 years ago. But here we are. I mean, just things that are beyond our imagination or beyond what our imagination could comprehend just 100 years ago as a human civilization. And I'm not going to do that. Let me go to Sister Murray out of Northern Liberties, who is calling in for a reality check. Sister Murray?
Yes, Charles. How are you?
How are you doing? Yeah, I mean, let's get realistic about what's happening now. I'm realistic about what's happening now. I see all these existential threats, but I also see a lot of missed opportunities to respond adequately to those existential threats. We have the means to do that. We absolutely have the means to do that. And folks want to get on here and peddle in pessimism and act like it's all done. You know what? And honestly, Mr. Rick, I know you're not in a good state physically, but I mean, it's just intellectually lazy for you to come on here with statements like that. That intellectual laziness. Figure out a solution. The hard part, the roll up your sleeves work, is figuring out a solution to all of this. I'm sorry, Sister Murray, go ahead.
Yes, Charles. Thanks for taking my call. And I'm doing well and I'm breathing on top. But,
yeah.
Charles, there is just so much. There's so many topics, so much to talk about. We can't do it all in a day and 2 seconds. What I want to say, yes, I am vaccinated. And you know what? There's just so much misinformation out here that scares the crap out of people. When you go on the internet, you see so much stuff. I mean, it's amazing how they put all of this bad stuff out here. Because, listen, Trump got his vaccination back in January. And remember, they didn't shut stuff down until March. But he got his shot back in January. But he was the biggest one on TV telling people, what not to do. Get out here and drink bleach and do all kinds of stuff and just
Right.
kind of kill people off. But let me tell you something. We all know better. And I have to say, I don't know who turns a blind eye. Charles, have you been down like Gordon Lehigh lately?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Long time ago, I used to go down there all the time. My grandmother used to work there.
What's
Work
going
on
on
at that
out
Botany
there?
500 factory there. Yeah, but go ahead. Mhm.
Have you seen what's happening out there? You got people out there stretched all out there on the corners, living in all kinds of conditions.
Right.
How? Where's our mayor? Where's our governor? Why do they even come down Broad Street to get to City Hall? I don't even know what's happening with these people. We selected these people to get us in a better situation than where they work for us. We don't work for them. And I don't know why people in the city of Philadelphia aren't out there screaming at them with the trash and with all of these people. I see more colored boxers, and I mean the ones the men wear, up and down the street. Nobody want to see your boxers. Pull your pants up. They out there scratching, digging, and doing all kinds of. Look, listen. We got money that's coming around. Now, Biden, the money man, he's putting it out there. We got to make sure that this money gets these people up off these streets. And I'm going to say this again. We got more rehabs and drug places and places to get shot up and Dixon needles and all this stuff and kids and stuff. And everybody keeps turning a blind eye. I want to know who's getting paid to keep turning a blind eye, because when I drive down Broad and Lehigh and down Broad Street, I see a mess. And I'm sick of looking at this, and our kids don't need to see this, because this is not how we want them raised up. And one more thing before I go. I ain't done with the school system, okay? And if they don't get out there and get some new schools built because they can, and they need to start, because they've had almost 2 years to get one school built, and they haven't done a darn thing. And the money keeps going, and where is the money?
Yeah.
So, have a good day.
You have a good one, too. Yeah, we really have to track that money. Let me go to Califat. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do apologize if I'm not. Califat out of Delaware, calling in for a reality check.
I bid you peace, Brother Ellison, and the listening audience. One of your callers made something very clear, and I don't think it was in a cowardice mode that he made the statement. But when you look at the litany of things that you have availed in your conversations over some time since we first talked, and the multitude of that which now has manifested into a state of a global pretentiousness of who knows what, not to mention the national state of just unmeasurable impending dangers. We have to really take an inventory in this respect. The divisiveness, the divide, the self-hate, the self-criticisms without an agenda on a table is really the thing that's hurting us the most. Like the sister said about Broad Lehigh. The Broad Lehigh situation is just a small microcosm of a multitude of situations around the country right now. Every city I'm aware of is having the same scenarios. Our men are going to have to get up off of it, off the duff, and take the post. Our sisters are going to have to adjust these young brothers and young sisters and take back their family and take back their village. We don't do it, it won't get done, because we are in a major situation come 22.
Right.
So with that, this elder signs off, sir, and says, you do have a good day, continue the work that you're doing, and everybody, please step up. It's down.
Thank you, sir. No, I appreciate that. So we're spending, to his point, to the elder's point, we are spending so much extra energy getting caught up in and anxious about, unnecessarily anxious about, and fooled by all this disinformation. And we need to be putting our energy into solutions. We need to be putting our energy into, as he just said, taking our villages back. Like that's where we need to put our energy into it, not out here calling from some place, some far away place. Mr. Rick in Germany, like not calling from far away places, telling people, oh, you need to get out while you still can. And the rest of you, okay, well, best of luck. Like that's not the kind of conversation we need to be having right now. We need to be having planning sessions about how do we solve, because you can run all especially when you got climate crisis. Climate crisis hitting everyone everywhere all over the planet. So it doesn't matter where you move to. It's like uh, middle class white people with money, who thought that they could escape climate change. Climate change hits them in one place, they moved to another place. They thought they could move into the mountains. Now mountains are just now you got mountains in places that were idyllic and pristine. Now they're hit by wildfires. They can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere. You can't escape it. You can't escape the crisis. You can move around and you can buy yourself time all you want. You will not escape this crisis. It is here. It is knocking on our door. So this is the moment where we figure this out and we fight. You fight to the last scrap. Like I'm hearing people calling in with this defeatism, and I mean the term that comes to mind is punks. Like folks are just being straight up punks about this. Like I did not know, after reading for so many years and digesting all these stories, these tales of proud Black liberation history, I did not know that we're supposed to give up on fights. I had no idea that this is a thing now. Like to just well, let's just give up. And if you got some money, save up your money, y'all, and move to Germany. What is that? Like I did not know that was a thing. Like you just punk out of a fight. The vast majority of people, especially living in a place like Philadelphia, have nowhere to go. And you actually want to call into this outlet, to this show, and and give people some of the worst advice that like I've heard since being on talk radio. Like it's like help people understand like the reality of the circumstances that we're in right now, be realistic about that, and and stop feeding people fatalistic pipe dreams, and just help them figure out like their condition right now, and come up with solutions. The solutions are there. The ideas and the solutions, they're there. There are people that are working on those. There's people on the front line who are trying to help folks. It's not a completely like hopeless situation, especially when there are very talented, very smart, and skilled, highly skilled people who are out there. Some people who are talented and smart and skilled, but they haven't yet received that chance to leverage that skill set. Like some of those folks, like some of those brothers and sisters out there on Broad and Lehigh. I'm sure there are geniuses out there who just haven't like had that opportunity or that chance. They're under-resourced. So that's why we got to put the energy, the intellectual energy, the spiritual energy, and emotional energy into, like the elder said, taking back our village. That's what we need to be doing. Taking back our village, growing our village, expanding our village, empowering our village. That's how you get prepared for the future. That's how you also build a future for not just you, but for your children and your grandchildren afterward. That's the kind of conversation we need to have. Not about the latest conspiracy theory on vaccine. Like, no, that's a waste of time. It's amazing that I'm actually spending so much time on that monumental waste of intellectual and emotional energy. It's amazing that I actually spend as much time as I do talking with folks and sparring with folks over it. But I feel like I have an obligation to, because people are dying. It's a life and death matter. And so, you still have people who are kind of on the fence, who are almost there to getting vaccinated and doing what they need to do to help. That's also part of taking back the village and saving as many lives as possible. And then, you hear some like pessimistic fool who calls in and comes up with some new twist, some new argument, something, that they picked up from some Facebook page that like 9 times out of 10 was crafted by some hacker white nationalist in another place, or some like chaos agent in China or Russia that's only interested in destabilizing community and creating chaos and making things fall apart because that's in their best political interest. They're not thinking about black people or your best political interest or your best social or physical or emotional needs and interests. They're not interested in that. They're interested in chaos and destabilization. And a lot of you are getting played as that's unfolding. You're getting played. Let's spend energy on what are solutions, what are ways that we can kind of fix the crisis that we're in right now. Let me take a break and we'll be right back with more Reality Check.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
Stage Door, focusing on arts and culture in and around Philadelphia. Hosted by Tiffany Bacon and co-moderated by Jeffrey Page of the Philadelphia Theater Company. Part of The Source, Fridays at noon, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. Sponsored by New Voices sponsor Comcast, NBC Universal, and Pico. This WURD Wellness Vignette is brought to you by Keystone First. WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation.
This is Helana, your resident expert health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of finding a new way to be social. So, we now live in a world where socialization has changed significantly, and we have to be creative on how we maintain and grow our social networks. Health and wellness also means having a healthy social life. Many of us get so wrapped up in work responsibilities that we forget to connect with our loved ones and friends. Finding a new way to be social can look like this. Schedule a weekly check-in with your extended family via telephone or even video chat. Number 2, write letters to your friends and start a new pen pal group. Take it old school. Number 3, use technology for you. Create a group chat for your close friends where you can share highlights and funny moments throughout the day. Finding a new way to be social is something we can all do to support our overall health, personally and in our communities. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy, healthy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at WURDradio.com. This WURD Wellness Vignette was brought to you by Keystone First. For more information, visit KeystoneFirstPA.com.
Join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year, we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon. I'll broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Our next stop is North Philly at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue on Friday, August 13th. Pick up voter registration information, meet special guests, and stand with WURD and be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your WURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center from 10 a.m. until 12 noon, Friday, August 13th. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by Pico, Keystone First, Ready Set Philly, and Hope Partnership for Education. Be there this Friday at the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the Black community as a digital 4WURD member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Or visit WURDradio.com. Start or renew your 4WURD membership today. This is WURD Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media. Reality Check.
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio.
And WURDradio.com.
Okay, welcome back. Phone lines are open at the moment, but let's go ahead and take a couple of callers who've been waiting patiently. Crystal out of Mount Airy is calling in for a reality check. Crystal?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, sister.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. And thanks for being there. I mean, I just love your show. That being said, firstly, I wanted to say that repetition, we learn by repetition. And I'm not chastising or putting anyone down because, you know, people say what they're used to saying. They do what they're used to doing. But we, as blacks, we have to stop referring to those Nazis, those haters, those racist rat, maggot bastards as supremacists, because they're not. They specifically took that title so that they could be referred to as something that they are not. They are inherently not superior. So every time we say it, there's a woman that comes on the other show before yours, and I don't know what she is, but nationality, but she says, she refers to those white races as supremacists. It has to be at least 20 times, and she's only talked for like 5 minutes. They do that. That is purposely put into place so that we can hear that. You hear it enough, that's what you think. Just like people thought that when we dark-skinned people were ugly because you're dark. No. They are not supremacists. We have to refer to them as what they are. White racists. That's it.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I actually think about that often, and so I do agree with you. It's time to recalibrate the language on that. That probably and sometimes I start finding myself using white nationalism more, as opposed to white supremacists. You know, because it is a very structured and very organized political and paramilitary front. It's nationalism. You know, it's so no, I think I agree with you. I think that, you know, we do need to reevaluate that. I think it's a very good point. I gotta let you go. Thanks so much for listening, and I appreciate the conversation, the comments too. Let me go ahead and take Wayne out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. Earlier, I was listening to you speak about the census. And I don't know if you talked about how, you know, the killing that goes on is going to affect our census in terms of having to decrease, because, you know, when you take these many males out of the sperm pool, that means that less kids will be produced. You know what I mean?
What are you talking about in terms of in terms of the census count?
The long-term effect, yeah. Let's just
long-term effects of what?
Yeah, of this consistent killing of ourselves.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, that's exactly. I mean, it's there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Is that, and how, you know, that's going to affect our numbers. Because why? Each time one of them 15-year-olds get killed, he is now taken out of the sperm pool. Okay?
Yeah.
Come on. Okay?
You're right. You're actually right.
And so I think that we should have that kind of conversation.
We should.
Okay? In terms of the long-term effect that we are putting on ourselves in terms of this killing. You know, and when you look at it, it's just not the victim that is taken out the sperm pool, but it's also the person that is convicted of the crime. They are now taken out of the sperm pool as well. You know, so I'm just saying that we should be able to try to relate that to folks in reference to the killing. You know, it's going to be a thing that maybe 20 years from now, a little kid going to be walking down the street with his mom, and he's going to say, "Mommy, look, Mommy, there's an Afro-American." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going to be rare as hen tooth. You know, so I just wanted to put that out there and listen to the comments.
And thank you, too. And to your point, I do appreciate it was someone who's listening in. She tagged me on Twitter. She made a good comment here, at Joy Rains Down, East Coast Mom on Twitter. And she's saying that I believe most black people should know that our count, and she put that in quotation marks, is not correct. We have been, in quotation marks, 12 to 13% for the last 100 years. It is impossible that our numbers have not increased. I tend to agree with her on that. So, but, you know, especially when, once again, we see these massive undercounts, the weaponization of the census against black people, that doesn't mean you should not participate in it. That's actually all the more reason why we all need to participate in census counts. Like I said last year, 3 most important things you need to do during the year: file your taxes, vote, take the census. And so we did have a lot of people participate in the census last year, even through pandemic. We needed more people to participate in the census last year, and we need to be a little bit more intentional at getting prepared for decennial census counts than we do. We need to put a lot more pressure on this. This falls on like our community groups and civic community organizations, that infrastructure. You know, to stop doing this dance of where you wait till the year up, like the year before the census count, to then start organizing and mobilizing around the census. No, you're supposed to be organizing and mobilizing around the census as soon as the last census stops. You know, you get 10 years of a head start. And so, you know, we should be just as loud and clear about census participation as we are about voter mobilization. You know, so it's pay your taxes, vote, take the census. Pay your taxes, vote, take the census. In the pandemic age, you probably want to add a fourth thing there: pay your taxes, vote, take the census, get vaccinated. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, it's just like, you know, just kind of 3, 4 simple things that, like, that's the mantra. And to the earlier caller's point, repetition. We need to get into proactive, you know, community building repetition. You know, not like, what's the brother say? So calls it death hustling, right? Yeah, that's that pessimism, you know, where it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's already done. Like they're in control, and it's all over. Like, it's not over. It never is over. So, you know, the fight continues. Like, stop being punks and get in that fight. Like, it's the way of the warrior. That's the way our history has always carried itself out. Like, we fight. We're warriors. We don't punk out. You know, so this is a big fight, and yeah, it's a hard fight, and it's going to be a lot of sweat, going to be a lot of tears, and there will be a lot of bloodshed. But like, you continue with that fight, and you continue with the intent to win. You win that fight. I don't know when people started just bowing out of fights. Like, I don't get that. Like, you didn't expect Muhammad Ali to bow out of a fight. Like, you know, some of these same folks calling in here being pessimistic about things. Like, you know, you don't expect, like, LeBron to drop a game. You didn't expect Muhammad Ali to bow out of a fight. You don't expect Serena to lose a match. Like, y'all put high expectations on our athletes to win. Y'all put more expectation on athletes, people who are like millions of degrees removed from you. You put more expectations on them than you do on yourself and ourselves. Oh, real quick, let's play this interview. I just this morning, I interviewed the U.S. Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, asking him about school reopenings. So we taped that, and let's play that right now. Listen in on my conversation with U.S. Secretary of Education, Biden cabinet member Miguel Cardona, here exclusively on Reality Check WURD.
WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. We're back at it for Reality Check on 96.1 FM, 900 AM in Philadelphia proper, heard and watched around the world on WURDradio.com. WURD TV and WURD app. I'm Charles Ellison. We're now joined by U.S. Secretary of Education and Biden administration cabinet member Miguel Cardona. More information on the U.S. Department of Education at ed.gov or ed.gov. Thanks for joining us, Secretary. Really appreciate your time.
Of course, happy to be with you.
Excellent, excellent. So at least according to this May 2021 YouGov poll that I saw of parents, 3 in every 5 parents want their kids to return to school in the fall, but we got to do that safely, right? And as more contagious variants spread. So how are we going about that? What's the plan for getting our children back in school?
Listen, across the country, 50 million students are excited to get back into the classroom with their friends, with their teachers. I had the fortune of traveling across the country over the last 2 to 3 months and seeing and hearing from students directly that just want to get back in the classroom. They prefer without masks, but let me tell you, they would wear the masks if that means they can get into the classroom safely and that they could be with their friends, that they could have a sports season. And that's at our reach. So what we need to do is, yes, monitor the Delta variant, but also monitor the policies. Make sure that our schools are providing safe school environments where the mitigation strategies are used so our students could get back in safely. We know what works, we just got to do it.
But you got to deal with those mask mandates first, which seem simple, but it's not. So how do you compel districts to follow a universal standard on that? And how do you protect them against states like Florida that are threatening to defund them if they do follow through with such a mandate?
Listen, I was there when the COVID-19 hit. I was a commissioner of education, and I knew we needed to rely on our health experts. They knew how this disease spreads and what to do to prevent spread. And when we followed those rules, we were able to reopen schools last year without vaccinations, without the testing that we have this year accessible. So we know what to do. I think what needs to happen is we need to let the politicians get out of the way and make sure that we're leading with health and safety at the forefront. I mean, look at the data in those places that are putting policy in place that goes against what CDC is saying. Their hospitals are overrun. The community spread is so high that, unfortunately, it could lead to school disruption. It could lead to students not having their sports season because of the decisions that adults are making, not just because of COVID. Because I think if we follow the mitigation strategies, we can control the spread of COVID. But sometimes confidence gets in the way and it interferes with learning.
I mean, are there any penalties? Is there anything that the federal government could do to compel those governments to follow a mask mandate? I mean, is there something you could do in terms of funding or anything that you could do in terms of pushing back in a regulatory manner against a state government putting that kind of pressure on a school district?
In addition to working closely with those states, I mean, at the end of the day, we're on the same team, right? I've had calls with governors, with state chiefs, with superintendents, with families. We want to work with them. However, in places where they're just putting policy that doesn't work, we're seeing what we can do. Because what we're noticing is that students who need to be in the classroom, students with disabilities, students who are on the wrong side of the achievement gap or who have been underserved for years are the ones who are less likely to go to school because there's a greater fear, because in those same communities, they were hit hardest by the pandemic. So what we're seeing is that schools reopen. For families who are afraid to send their children back, what we're trying to get a sense of is, are they concerned because of these policies that are put in place? And if that's the case, in my opinion, you're preventing the rights of our students to access public education. So we're monitoring that very closely. We're working with those states and we're pushing. We're also monitoring the distribution of the American Rescue Plan funds. Those funds were intended by the President and Congress to keep our students safe and learning and making sure that our schools have the tools that they need to safely reopen. If those funds are not being used for what they were intended to, we're gonna have something to say about that. So that's the process that we're in now to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing with the funds that were allocated by the federal government.
Hey, Secretary, do you plan on vaccines being ready for students, K through 12 students, by the end of this year? And if we're seeing such a hard time with mask mandates, how do you prepare for pushback from states and even parents who say they don't want their students vaccinated?
Let me tell you, Charles, as a father, the moment my children were eligible for a vaccine, they got it. And I breathed a lot easier knowing that they were vaccinated and protected. So I encourage all parents across the country, those who are listening, I wouldn't do anything for my children. I wouldn't ask you to do anything for your children that I wouldn't do for my own children. And, that's the best tool that we have. So promoting the safety of the vaccine, the efficacy of the vaccine is critically important. And while I don't have any role or influence in the FDA process or the tests that are going on, I do know that if we use pop-up clinics in our high schools where students can have access to the vaccine as a part of the routine, re-entry to school, more of our students are going to get vaccinated, more of our students are going to be safe, and there's a greater likelihood that they could learn in person consistently.
Mm-hmm. So we don't know the calendar for that yet. I mean, I hear from some public health officials where they're preparing for the end of this year at best. I mean, kind of like, that's a conservative estimate that those vaccines would be ready for those students.
I'm hearing in the fall myself, but just like you are, I don't have any insider information. I mean, I work closely with our colleagues at CDC, but that information and the FDA, they're working on that, I know, as quickly as they can, but because they know what's at stake. But at the end of the day, we have to respect those processes to make sure that we can build confidence across the country in the processes.
I'm also sure that you're aware of many parents who don't want their children going back into their neighborhood or community public school or public school district. So like in LA Unified, for example, I think there are about nearly 13,000 students who are not going back because they have concerns with the way school districts have managed the pandemic. What role could, say, I don't know, alternative publicly funded so-called charter schools play in taking those students in? Is there a conversation about partnering more closely with charter school models that can work, and also about making some accommodations as far as virtual learning is concerned?
Yeah, schools are schools, right? All schools, public, private, charter, independent, they all have to follow the same mitigation strategies because the pandemic doesn't make its way only to public schools. But it's critically important that our schools focus on making sure that they're communicating with families what they're doing to keep their children safe. And we know what works. We know that mitigation strategies such as masking is known to reduce spread of COVID-19, not only in schools, but in the community. And that's another important point. I think sometimes we forget that it's the community spread that causes schools to close. Very rarely do you see cases of spread in schools when they're using the mitigation strategies. What we find is the community in which the school sits, the rates are so high that schools have to close. So that would impact every school. But your point is a good one. We need to do more as our schools, to communicate with families on what we're doing to keep our children safe. That's why I go back to the return to school roadmap.
What about the collaboration or potential partnering with like other types of schools that are publicly funded? Sure. I know that's a politically treacherous, thorny issue, but I mean, is that a conversation? You've got some charter school models out there that are effective that sometimes parents will choose over their district school. Would those 13,000 students, then would you start having if they go to, say, a charter school or a virtual learning program that's publicly funded, how do you partner and collaborate with them?
I don't think it's political at all. Parents have an opportunity to send their children where they want to send their children to learn. And I have seen charter schools do a great job. I've also seen neighborhood schools do a great job, and I've seen both do a poor job. So it has nothing to do with the charter or neighborhood school. What it has to do with is the responsibility of adults leading those schools, communicating with families what they're doing to keep their children safe. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter where their children are. It could be an early childhood center. It could be a college or a four-year university. How are you keeping the folks safe? Are you following the roadmap, which leads with safety, makes sure that our students have social and emotional support and academic support to accelerate whatever recovery is needed in terms of learning loss. So, I think parents have options, but at the end of the day, as a father, I want to make sure that my children are safe. And no matter where I'm sending my children, I need to know that they're following the mitigation strategies that we've been promoting, that are very clear in our roadmap, and that we know work. I mean, we have a year's worth of experience under our belts. Let's not be foolish and think that we can outsmart Delta variant. Follow the mitigation strategies, get our kids safely back in school where they belong.
I know I got you for another minute, Secretary. One last question. There was a study showing that nearly 3 million children nationwide were missing from public school attendance rolls. And so are you following this development? What's the action plan for locating these children and getting them back in school?
Yes, definitely. And you brought up something that I think as a country we have to come to grips with. The pandemic exacerbated gaps. And what we're finding is many students had to move from one day to the next, or haven't been found or haven't been connected with. So we have to double down on our efforts using the American Rescue Plan to make sure that we're reaching those families, reaching those students, getting them safely back into school. There's $800 million toward homelessness, addressing homelessness. And we have to make sure that we're utilizing those funds to connect with those families. Usually when a student is disconnected, it's because they're dealing with life circumstances. We have to come together, wrap our arms around our families and make sure that we're supporting them. If it's housing insecurity, we have to address that. If it's food insecurity, we have to address that. We need our students back in the classroom where they learn best. And we're prepared to do so.
Is it something you're tracking? I mean, is the education department talking to districts and tracking how many, is that number accurate? Like 3, that's a lot of kids out there. If we don't know what happened to many of those kids, 3 million, that's quite a bit.
It is a lot. We are working with our states. We're in regular conversation with our states, our outreach team, finding out what they're learning, where those numbers are, and we're communicating strategies that have been proven to be successful across the country to help track those students. Yes, it's all hands on deck, and we are working really closely with our states and local districts.
We've been talking with Education Secretary Miguel Cardona. He's been joining us here on Reality Check WURD. Secretary, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Take care.
All right. Go to ed.gov for the U.S. Department of Education for more on them and on what the Secretary is doing. All right. We'll be back for more Reality Check.
Hey, WURD family. Did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to WURDradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to WURDradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today.
More than joint replacement, it's total joint care. Einstein Orthopedics offers minimally invasive, same-day procedures like anterior hip replacement and knee replacement surgery. Our board-certified surgeons and dedicated team will give you personalized care every step of the way. From your first appointment to surgery to post-procedure follow-up care, Einstein Orthopedics offers everything you need to get moving again. Visit einstein.edu/total joint to learn more.
The Black Words Book Club.
WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for September is Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America by Keith Boykin. Be sure to listen live as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, September 14th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit WURDradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Reality Check
with Charles Ellison.
Right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
Welcome back to Reality Check. We're on WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, and WURD app. Joseph McLeod is a security officer. He's been in that space for over 20 years. We invited him to talk about a recent controversy that the House Homeland Security Committee is looking at regarding the preparedness of federal security officers who guard federal buildings, federal assets, and locations all throughout the country. There have been some concerns raised by Philadelphia-based security officers who are employed by a certain contractor to protect these types of locations and assets in the Philadelphia and South Jersey area. So we invited Mr. McLeod on to talk a little bit about that. Mr. McLeod, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, how are you? This Charles. Nice to meet you.
Yes, it's good to meet you as well. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So how long have you been in security work? Just out of curiosity, tell us a little bit about your experiences and your level of expertise.
My beginning started in the military. I was in the Air Force, and then I came out of the Air Force, and I started in security, first with Wells Fargo back in about 1989, and then have been progressively with security ever since.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. So, and you also provide like a lot of advice and guidance as far as security, security best practices as well. And I'm real curious about this letter. I want to get your insights on it. The chair of the Homeland Security Committee, Congressman Benny Thompson out of Mississippi, he sent a letter recently to the Federal Protective Services. Federal Protective Services, for those who don't know, is like it's like the police agency for federal buildings and federal assets and locations around the country, the FPS. And so he wanted to know more about lack of preparedness for Philadelphia-based security officers at these kinds of locations. What prompted that letter? What's this all about?
Well, the uniforms in general were lacking initially when we got them. You had boots that were inadequate. You had pants that were inadequate. Then some of the weapons themselves. I mean, think about that, weapons that are actually inadequate. I was actually on the range one time, and we had malfunctions with the particular weapon. It wasn't the person, it was the actual weapon. And the preparedness is the problem when it comes to being in the buildings. And as you know, what happened on January 6th, and then they're talking about having something potentially next month. But still, when you're on site, you need to be prepared at all times. And with the equipment and the gear that we have, we just don't feel secure. And just like a police officer or a fireman or any of those professions, you need to be confident in the equipment that you're carrying.
Yeah, I would think so. And particularly for those types of high value assets. Absolutely. Or high value, some people would think about them as like high value targets.
That is correct.
Want to be, exactly. So do you hear of these, so just out of curiosity, before we get a little bit more deeper into the situation, what's happening in Philadelphia and like those southeastern PA, the regional locations, do you hear similar complaints from other places, other regions, other places where it's either like actual, rank and file FPS or other employees of other contractors? Are they having those same sorts of issues with, lack of preparedness, lack of resources, faulty equipment? No, not to my knowledge personally. About other organizations, no, I have not heard that. This is specific to this particular contractor, and just having those interactions with personnel from the different locations and different sites, and then actually being an eyewitness to certain things. It's just a lack of equipment and a lack of training. And when you have those type of situations, people can get hurt. And you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to trust that the personnel in your building and the personnel that are around you have the same knowledge and same skill level, that you have to protect themselves, the personnel inside the building, and the building itself. And since, these problems that you've outlined, that you've illustrated for us, seem to be unusual compared to other places and other contractors and other parts of the nation, that leads you to believe that there's some level of disparate treatment from the contractor, a lot of also sort of ignorance or willful ignorance of your claims from the Federal Protective Services, because the majority of the officers in the Philadelphia area who are guarding these installations are Black.
That is correct. That is correct, yes. The majority of us are African American, Black, however you want to call it. But the training, as we were just speaking of, like next month, there's potentially a situation that could happen anywhere across the country. You would think that they would heighten the alert and come down and make sure that each individual on different shifts would know how to secure their building, how to secure the personnel. But that just hasn't been done, because this happened once before. And actually it was, myself and another gentleman who were actually teaching the security officers that in the event of an emergency, in the event that somebody tries to, or a group tried to run up into the building and, provide, harm or anything to personnel inside, how to actually protect it. Why is that coming from individual security officers to each other? That should be coming from the supervisors.
Something recently happened too, not too long about a little bit over a month ago, July 4th. There was a military veteran, a triple canopy officer, contracted officer, Sean Bass, right? He was on duty, and that was when there was that march by the Patriot Front group. It was a white nationalist, racist, fascist hate group, was marching past this building, and he felt unprepared. I mean, there was a clash with police. I mean, was there a particular set of circumstances or an instance of a clash that really concerned not just Bass, had him concerned for his life and safety, but also concerned. I mean, it prompted just a sense of urgency around this matter.
Well, when you have people that come up to your building and you are unsure of their identification, and you have people that are untrained who, like, when they go through, should I say, when they come to your building, they need individual training, because a general view of, oh, you check this person, you check this, but what are you looking for? Show me what you're looking for. Show me, what you need to do to process this person in. And when you don't have that training, again, people can make mistakes, people can get hurt, and that's the one thing that you don't want. Specific situations was Sean Bass, he did have an incident. Matter of fact, I believe he had 2 incidents over at that building where somebody actually broke a window, and then he had to call FPS and things like that. But you've had bomb scares, you've had packages left in certain places where you had. But if you don't know the procedures, if you haven't been properly trained, if you don't know how to screen people and pat them down, and and make the proper notifications, it can be dangerous. It can definitely be dangerous. I mean, even when you look at the Capitol police incident, those guys were kind of on their own. They were just left alone.
Yeah. How severe is the threat level, you feel, to federal installations in the Philly area?
Well, I mean, the area that I work in is the IRS, and everybody loves the IRS. So, I mean, with that, and speaking just in terms itself, you don't know what people's intentions are as they come up. So you have to keep that level at a high. You have to, you have to keep your preparedness level at a high level. But when you have a lack of training, and you constantly have, troops coming in, you still want to make sure that they're taken care of, but that, again, that should be coming from the office itself.
The contractor that you work for is contracted by the Department of Homeland Security, Triple Canopy Incorporated. It's a division or a subsidiary of Constellus.
Constellus, that's correct, yes.
Constellus, there we go. Yeah. And Constellus used to be Blackwater, which was... That is correct, yes. Right. Blackwater basically went out of business, but renamed itself as Constellus. Everyone knows about Blackwater. former disgraced federal contractor, did some fairly nefarious work out in Iraq, and other work too. But what's Triple Canopy saying about this? I mean, as you all are making airing your concerns and telling them that, hey, we're unprepared here, and especially this is important at a time like this.
We're still waiting for answers. The project manager, the original project manager, has been terminated, and a new project manager came in. There were some changes to the uniforms, but it's still, as far as training, still lacking. Still a poor quality of training. And like I said, and I still revert back to you already have a known incident that could potentially take place, and the preparedness is just not there.
Right. And Triple Canopy, they're expected to answer Congressman Thompson's inquiry or Chairman Thompson's inquiry by tomorrow. Like the deadline is tomorrow.
I sure hope
Triple
so.
Canopy's answers. And I mean, is there sort of like a universal package of best practices, right, Joe, that you all have to follow in terms of training? Is there like a professional association that says, hey, this is what security officers who are guarding these types of installations need to do? Think that Triple Canopy would know about, that you all know about, that you should be following?
Well, just as a security company, you would think that would be the bare minimum. I mean, to look at another company to say, oh, hey, guys, what are you doing? No, that should be actually your mission statement, to know exactly what to do, and especially when you're talking about federal buildings. You should have your own mission statement, and that mission statement should be across the board. There should be no deviation about what to do, how to do it, where to do it, and a list of people to call and to make notifications on when things need to happen.
And Triple Canopy, I mean, they're getting quite a bit of money from the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, there are other issues that you all have raised as well, and other demands that you're making. You want higher wages. You definitely want better training. You need fair discipline policies. You want to be protected from issues like religious discrimination, sexual harassment at work sites. That's another problem that's come up. Workers want to be paid during the Juneteenth holiday. All those. So no response yet from Triple Canopy on any of those demands.
Not to my knowledge, no. Not to my knowledge, no. None.
Wow. Yeah. As far as the wage, what's the if you don't mind my asking, what is the wage situation like?
And I've never seen this happen in any security officer group, or matter of fact, any group. You have officers doing the same job in the same buildings, coming out of the same office, but are making two totally different rates. One's making $28.05. The other one's, if I'm not mistaken, it's $3 less, which would be $25.05. And I'm like, well, why are they?
It's the white security officers are getting paid more than the black security officers.
Well, no, it's not that. It's just anybody coming in after a certain date, which doesn't make any sense to me, because we are all doing the same job, shoulder to shoulder, to protect the facilities and to protect the personnel inside, as well as protect each other. But why are they being paid less? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm real curious about this. I like to. Hopefully, we can do some follow up too with the chairman. We've been in touch with his office before, and find out. Like, I'm real curious to know if Triple Canopy is going to respond to that deadline, which is tomorrow. They need to respond to that letter from Homeland Security Chairman Benny Thompson, and Homeland Security Chairman Benny Thompson is also lead on the January 6th Insurrection Commission,
correct.
Which is in play right now. Right, so he's not playing. We've been talking with Joe McLeod. He's a security officer for over 2 decades now. He also currently works for Department of Homeland Security contractor, Triple Canopy Incorporated. So we're waiting on an answer for them and hoping that that there'll be some responses to the inquiry from the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. Joe, really appreciate your time here. Please keep us updated. We'll have you back on.
Hey, Charles, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you letting us get our message out there. Thanks again.
Sir, all right, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Be safe out there, too, please.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Have a good one. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All All right, let's take a break and we'll be right back with more Reality Check.
Comcast is committing $1 billion to reach 50 million low-income Americans with the tools and resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
Philadelphia Families, PHL Pre-K, the city's free quality pre-K program, is growing and now enrolling. Over 160 pre-K centers are ready to serve children this year. There are no income limits for this free pre-K program. Children who are 3 or 4 years old as of September 1 can enroll. Call 844-PHL-PRE-K or visit phlprek.org to learn more and find a quality pre-K center. That's 844-745-7735. This program is made possible by the Philadelphia Beverage Tax.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Want the latest in WURD swag?
Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black.
Talk Media. Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Lots of issues to talk about here on this Thursday morning, heading into afternoon. It's the midday, midday end of week edition of Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So we're watching developments unfold in Washington and the nation's capital. We're going to be watching very closely how those really monumental, those massive infrastructure bills are passing through the Congress. What happens when they enter the House? If they what sort of resistance they'll meet, particularly from progressive Democrats who are still feeling like there could be more, particularly as it relates to issues like climate crisis, clean energy, et cetera. So we'll just see where all of that ends up. If more is added, if negotiations get a little bit more contentious, floor action gets a little bit more contentious, we'll see. So, but we do expect full passage, and then really need to be gearing up for tracking those monies. So just kind of, I'm watching that very closely and watching that with a lot of interest. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, a lot of news in terms of the online space. We did see the suspension of the Twitter account for Senator Rand Paul out of Kentucky. So his Twitter account was suspended for releasing disinformation or spewing disinformation regarding masks, about the effectiveness of masks. So then we come to find out, I was seeing something recently where his wife apparently had shares in an anti-vaccine company of some sort. So so you always got to follow the money on that. But so you got that, and then we also have a suspension of Representative Marjorie Greene Taylor out of Georgia. I think her also for spreading disinformation. Her Twitter account suspended as well. So not totally taken offline, but it'll be suspended for a while. I think about a week or two. Also, some breaking news that's coming out of Texas. The Texas State Senate has approved a big and very ambitious voting restrictions bill. One of the most extensive to date out of all those various voter suppression, voter restriction bills that we've been tracking. There was one lone Democratic state senator who was filibustering as best she could that bill. Senate Democratic Caucus Chair Carol Alvarado filibustered that bill for 15 hours. She stood up for 15 hours trying to stop that bill. And because Texas Democrats are back in Texas, they were forced back to Texas. The governor and also the Texas House Speaker, Dave Phelan, basically forced them, forced their hand. And the Texas House Speaker had signed arrest warrants for about 52 Democrats who had failed to return during the fourth day of the second special session of the House. So, folks didn't want to get arrested. I guess they were like, well, let's go back to the legislature. And Carol Alvarado stood up for 15 hours. Now, the filibuster rules in the Texas Senate prevent you from block. It's very interesting how they do that. But I'm not sure. Maybe Schumer needs to do that here. So, but anyway, in Washington D.C. But yeah, she did that for 15 hours. They couldn't take a bathroom break. She had to stand up. She didn't lean. I see photos of her in sneakers, and she did her best. She was exhausted, but they passed that bill anyway, obviously, because Texas Republicans run the Texas state legislature. So, and they keep arguing that their bill will make it easier to vote and harder to cheat, but there's just very rare instances of voter fraud in Texas or anywhere else for that matter. Let me go to the phone lines. Marsha out of Kensington is calling in for a reality check. Marsha?
Yes. Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it. So about the mask, if you look on I heard your comment about follow the money or something to the effect that there was some sort of underhanded stuff going on. But if you look at the boxes of masks that the average person living in Philadelphia, I'm just talking about Philadelphia right now because that's where I am, the average person running to Walmart, running to get gas, whatever they're doing, the masks that they're using, if you were to look on those boxes that were purchased by just the normal person trying to protect themselves, it says on the box that this mask does not protect you from COVID. It says that on the box.
What box? Okay, so first of all, what box is that? What manufacturer is that?
That information I can't give you, but I think it's the
Why are you telling me the information, Marsha, if you can't even tell me the name of the manufacturer? Like, what kind of business is that?
You can say that. You can say that. But now, if you allow me...
Like, I'm sure I'm not the only one saying it. People are probably listening in like, huh?
Whatever.
Like, why is she calling in and telling them about, like, a box of masks and don't even have the name of the manufacturer?
Can I finish?
Yeah, go ahead.
I noticed that when that other fellow was on and he was talking about the protection of the buildings, these very important buildings, he was a police person, and you jumped to the thing to say, oh, you mean they're getting paid more, the white people? And I noticed...
Because they're having issues with fair wages. That's one of the complaints.
You stopped the conversation. It was over because it wasn't fitting your agenda. I hope you're not going to do that.
I didn't have an agenda. I just want to we're dealing with facts.
With me.
It's such a bad situation in terms of fair wages, Marsha, that the Homeland Security chairman is in it.
That people, the average working person is buying. I can't go out right now. Maybe I should have done that. I should have went out and found out which boxes they were. I didn't because I'm in my kitchen.
So, Marsha, according to the National Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Sciences of the United States, this is a 2021 study, masks are 79% effective. That's like at a minimum, 79% effective in preventing transmission. That's an actual study. That's a full-blown study of masks, and there are other studies that are out. That's one of the more recent studies.
I think your statistics are not true.
It's the National Academy of Sciences. I mean, you can't get any better than that. And it's edited by somebody at the University of Texas at Austin.
Would allow the truth to get through about doctors.
So wait a second. This is hilarious because you're comparing your unnamed box.
People would be more aware.
Wait, Marsha, wait a second. You're comparing your unnamed box that has we don't know who the manufacturer is to this moment. So you're comparing your unnamed box to my full-blown, peer-reviewed National Academy of Sciences study.
You could be picayune. if you want
the
to.
hilariousness
it's up
of
to
that.
you. You're the one who has the show. I'm not. So you can say whatever
I'm
you
letting
want.
call
try
on,
to
but at
ensure
least have the name
refute,
of the box for me. What's the
trying
name of the
to
box?
refute. All I hear from you is the box, the box, the box. I'm giving you.
But you called us. You
truthful,
called me. Like, at least have your stuff. You should have had the box
realization,
ready. Take a
and
picture of
you
it.
might
You know,
have
I'm like,
to
oh,
get
look at this
up
box.
off
I got to
your
tell Charles
bucket
Ellison about it.
and go look at some boxes yourself, and you'll see that I'm telling you.
I'm not. You don't want to call me about the boxes,
I'm
dear.
not lying.
I'm not.
Why would I lie?
It's not my box. It's your box.
Why would
You
I
should have
lie
had the
about
name. You should have had the name ready.
Ridiculous. So the other part of this, though, is there's so much information that we're not privileged to because the media will not let it go through. And you must know.
Yeah, the media is not going to report on
global,
unnamed boxes. Like boxes you can't provide names
for.
for.
The boxes. We are
All right,
going
Marsha, I gotta let you
through
go because I don't want to take up like I really don't want to take up any more time with any more nonsense. I mean, I would have actually appreciated the conversation more if you had like, no, I'm being real serious here now. If you had like, say, as you saw the box, you noticed it, take a picture of it, make sure you get all the information. Go online and go to the company's website. Maybe, do some search on like the company. Was there some issues with maybe that particular maker of mask? Because there's different mask manufacturers out there. Just kind of take some steps and then come on here and have a conversation. Just say, hey, I noticed that I actually would have entertained the conversation. I would have taken the conversation a little bit more seriously. It's hard for me to take it seriously if you're just telling me, one, you're trying to prove to me when all scientific evidence points to or shows, just like emphatically refutes the notion that masks are ineffective. They are very effective. I mean, it's a high effectiveness rate. So, but you don't even have the name. Yeah, the box. Like, what's the name of the box, sis? Like, why you gonna come on here? You the one called us. I ain't called you. It's not like I was like, hey, let's get Marshall on the phone because I want to know what Marshall from Kensington. I want to know what her take is on masks. Once again, there's some very simple steps that we can take, everyone. Like, folks are out here. I don't get it. Folks are out here complaining about woe be them. Oh, wish this pandemic would end, but they don't want to do simple things like masks, like getting vaccinated. There's simple things. There's simple things that civil societies do to get themselves through a public health crisis. This is just standard best practice. Suddenly, it's not anymore because, I know the difference. There's a big difference between now and when we went through these exercises before. And, when we went through these exercises before, like for things like for polio, for example, or for, there would be, people still anxious and reluctant, but not at these levels. This is something where I'm talking to public health officials, people who are familiar with that history, and they're like, or people who who lived through previous outbreak, epidemic, pandemic periods, big major epidemic, and they're like, I've never seen anything like this before. In terms of just the dangerous, destructive spread of disinformation, and people embracing that, people literally just bathing in ignorance. Like, it's astounding. It is astounding. And and the more, and what's bad is that the more you talk to folks about it, or the more you push back and you're providing them, like, you see what I did? I had right in front of me. I'm looking at it. I'm on the National Academy of Sciences website. I'm looking at the report. It's 2021 report. It's about 6 different people that worked on it. No, a lot more than that. I mean, people from places like the Brown University School of Medicine, University of San Francisco, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. They even got the Czech Academy, from the Czech Republic Academy of Sciences. They got University of Oxford. They got some folks out in South Africa. You got a whole bunch of people who studied this, and then it got edited by an expert at the University of Texas at Austin, and the NAS editorial board member. I mean, this has been peer reviewed extensively, and 79% master, 79% effective. Again, that's the final conclusion after you go through the whole study. So and she's telling me about some unnamed box, but that's what's crazy. She doubled down. Like, there's a lot of people, she's not the only one. There's a lot of people doing that, in the face of actual evidence, factual evidence, people just doubling down, just digging in, getting more indignant. It's like, wow. It's amazing to me. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back with more Reality Check.
WURD Founders Day. Don't miss our annual Founders Day live broadcast and celebration, Thursday, August 26th, honoring the life and legacy of our founder, Walter P. Lomax Jr., MD, featuring a very special broadcast of a ceremonial street naming for Dr. Lomax from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. at 1800 Wharton Street, the site of his first medical center.
Hosted by Charles Ellison.
The day will also include a series of virtual panels and conversations exploring health, wealth, and independent media. Start or renew your forward membership on Founders Day at the special discounted rate of just $80. For more information about WURD Founders Day, visit WURDradio.com. WURD Radio Founders Day is brought to you by Pico, Keystone First, Bank of America, Ready Set Philly, Comcast, Brown's Family ShopRite, Temple University, and Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, 2nd District.
Build skills needed for employment through the Philadelphia Skills Forward Initiative, a free upskilling program for workers displaced by the pandemic, those whose jobs are at risk for automation, and Black and brown workers. Complete courses focused on digital literacy, career management, and professional skills for a successful career. Get started today at chamberphl.com.
The Black Words Book Club.
WURD Radio's conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. The Black Words book for September is Race Against Time, The Politics of a Darkening America by Keith Boykin. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it, Tuesday, September 14th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit WURDradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Be there this Friday at the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the Black community as a digital forward member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center, 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Or visit WURDradio.com. Start or renew your forward membership today. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app.
Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio, independent Black media.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. Welcome back to Reality Check, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, and WURD app. I'm Charles Ellison, at Ellison Report, hashtag Reality Check for more there. Joining us now is Professor Paul Weinstein. He is director and a professor in public management at Johns Hopkins University. That's based in Baltimore. Go to jhu.edu for more information. And also, Professor, Johns Hopkins, they're like the gold standard in COVID-19 infections and deaths tracking worldwide. I mean, they established that standard. They were kind of like the first out the gate that started tracking this. So definitely appreciate that work. That was a website I go to frequently to track what's going on with COVID-19 globally, and also gives you more granular data nationwide and statewide. But it's good to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Yes, I go there myself all the time too, and I can't take any credit for putting that particular data set together. But yes, we're proud of Johns Hopkins for having it and providing that service.
All right, yeah, continue that work because we need it. So let's talk about vaccine mandates. So this is something that you've been looking at. You specialize in, you have expertise in public management and looking at that. I've got some background in that as well. So public health management and crisis communications, et cetera. You feel like, yeah, we're now at that point where now we're starting to see, we were expecting this, right? We're starting to see more and more public and private sector vaccine mandates. How essential are those to reach herd immunity?
They're going to be key because basically we're at a point now, as you know, where we went from about 4 million shots a day, if you looked at the April, May numbers, to it dropped down to as low as 400,000 shots per day. It's kicked up a little bit. It's getting closer to the sort of high 600,000s. But, you know, at that rate, it'll be another 9 months before we even hit herd immunity. And that's just it's not good enough. It's just, you know, we've got to sort of nip this thing in the bud, or we're going to continue to have situations like we're having right now where a lot of localities are going back to mask mandates. We've got Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and New York and many, many places. And you know, people are just going to fight over this. The reality is the vaccines give us a way out of this, and they can also help prevent future variants and keep us safe.
Is on future variants, is that a worry? Like the more we prolong this, the more we have holdouts, fewer people getting vaccinated. Even the current vaccine, as effective as it is, we could reach a point where like the variants overwhelm that vaccine, and it'll feel like we're back to square one.
Yeah, eventually we will have a variant that that the vaccines won't work very effectively against. And so you've really got to get people in this country vaccinated and people throughout the world vaccinated to prevent those variants from happening and really to kind of close the door. I mean, we are going to be dealing with COVID for a long time, but hopefully not like we've been dealing with it, in the last, year and a half, more like dealing with the flu and colds where you might get sick a little bit, but you're not going to go to the hospital and you're not going to die from it, or very unlikely that you're going to die from it. So, and there's been a lot of talk recently about, well, are these vaccines even effective now against the current Delta variant? I was looking at data this morning. Basically, 99.9% of those who are vaccinated will not and get one of these breakthrough, Delta cases are not going to go to the hospital or are not going to die. And the breakthrough the breakthrough cases are very rare anyway. So you really are looking now to sort of nip these variants in the bud, because there could be one down the road where we're not so lucky.
Yeah. Mandates. When we talk about vaccine mandates, in your mind, I mean, as you're looking at the vaccine mandate landscape unfold, and we just had, rather major vaccine mandates that were announced in Philadelphia just yesterday, New York City, other places, and we saw France go nationwide. They were kind of like the first. They kind of took that big, bold step.
Yeah.
How are you seeing? I mean, are governments, public officials handling this responsibly? That's one, and then two, how should they go about this as they're issuing these mandates?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sort of these targeted mandates is probably the most workable approach in the United States. So I think, today I believe Department of HHS, Health and Human Services, announced that they're going to have a vaccine mandate for, healthcare workers that work with the Department of HHS, including National Institution of Health and elsewhere. We've had one for the Veterans Department, who obviously they have a lot of folks who are, veterans hospitals and nursing homes and other facilities. I think we're hearing talk now about having mandates on international flights coming into the U.S., vaccine mandates for people who want to come to the U.S. I think this kind of targeted approach is the way to go, partly because that's really where you probably have the legal authority to do these things, especially if you're the federal government. And also, I think you get people more comfortable with these mandates, and as you see these numbers start going up, people will get more confidence in the vaccines as well.
Yeah. As far as the federal government, I mean, what's the extent of the federal government's authority? You know, looking at and really looking at the difference between private sector and public sector mandates, right? What's the extent to which the federal government, state and local governments can impose vaccine mandates in a way that's legal? I mean, that also avoids lawsuits or avoids, maybe because we're seeing, some unions, some public sector unions being on the fence about this or entertaining anti-vaccine sentiment within their membership. So how complicated does that get?
Well, it does get complicated. Sorry, like on my iPad here, but the federal government has limited authority, clearly over the military. The president, as commander-in-chief, has authority. He does have authority to require it for federal workers because he is also the head of government. And unless Congress wants to explicitly say he can't do it, he does have that authority as well. I mentioned in my op-ed, I think you referenced earlier, he also has the authority over, interstate travel to some extent, and that would include, for example, the airlines. He can't just mandate, though, everybody have it. The president does not have that authority. That authority lies with the states. And so, and localities, and so the state governments could mandate it, for example, in schools and elsewhere, but they would have to do so if you want to have a more general mandate.
We're talking with Paul Weinstein. He is director of public management, professor of public management at Johns Hopkins University. Go to jhu.edu for more on Johns Hopkins, and he did write this recent op-ed in USA Today, require vaccination proof for air travel to curb COVID. And I want to ask you too, Professor, about a little bit more about air travel. Are the airlines, because now there's certain airlines, they're not requiring their workers, several of them are not requiring their workers to get vaccinated. So how are they going to not require their workers to get vaccinated, but then they're going to demand, or they're going to go along with an FAA edict for travelers to be vaccinated before they travel?
Well, you're right. Southwest, Delta announced the other day, as well as American, that they aren't requiring it. United is requiring it of their workers. But if the FAA requires it of people who are traveling on airlines, that would in effect also require those airlines that are to comply as well. So they would have to change their policies. And I think maybe, I don't know, I put a little of my cynical hat on here. I think the airlines actually want the federal government to make this requirement. I think they want some certainty. They want to be able to point to the law. And I think maybe they did this in part because they're trying to put some pressure on the federal government to move forward. I'm speculating there. I don't have any particular inside information except a little bit of conversations, but I wouldn't be surprised.
That's interesting, because that would kind of insulate them from legal liabilities. Say an employee like suing them because they made that decision. They could say, "Hey, our hands were tied. It was federal law." Right. And then it reaches the Supreme Court, and it's like, well, hey, it's federal law. It says that this is what you have to do.
Employers want some certainty. Some obviously have gone ahead and are pushing this, but I think if you really want to start seeing this done, on a broader scale, they're going to look for more cover from the government to basically say, hey, you've got to do this.
Talk to us about, if you can speak to it, HIPAA law, because there's been a lot of conversation about HIPAA law, about the protection of private health information, health insurance information. So what does HIPAA law say as far as vaccines? Like, for example, if businesses are requiring, want to know from customers, hey, did you get vaccinated or not? We need proof of that before you can enter this space. Or the same thing with airlines. I mean, is that, there's been a lot of confusion there. Is that a HIPAA violation to ask that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, and I can't say that I have the specific answer. And again, this is sort of where governments need to sort of step in and make it clear what's required and what's not required. I do think it's very difficult for a restaurant to say to somebody, you've got to have proof of vaccination to come in and sit down and eat. I don't know that they could do that legally. They can say you've got to wear a mask, right? We know that. But asking someone's, vaccination status is a little different. Schools, can do this because there's a very clear, long history of law on this, right? Where schools can say, yeah, you need to be vaccinated if you want to attend. And we've done that with plenty of other vaccines like polio and others, for example.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be hard for specific industries to, not necessarily employers, but if you're going in as a customer, I think that makes things very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I think if you're an employer, you probably have some, by giving yourself some wiggle room on maybe, exceptions for medical issues, or giving people the option to, maybe work at home, or agree to regular testing. You might be giving yourself some protections. But again, it would be helpful here if the government could give some guidelines to companies that are going down this road.
What kinds of guidelines could they give them, for something like that? Do you have ideal set of guidelines?
Being more specific as to what would fall under HIPAA, what would not,
right,
would be an important start. What kinds of exceptions you have to make for people, like I just mentioned, the medical exceptions, do you need to allow religious exceptions? Do you give people, if you give people the option of regular testing, does that, protect them from legal liability? A lot of these companies want that. I've worked on other issues where we've tried, when I worked in government, where we tried to provide companies with some sorts of protection so that they would sort of do the right thing. We worked a lot on cleaning up brownfields in urban areas. And one of the big issues there was giving companies who were going in to clean up those brownfields some protection from being sued, because they were actually afraid to start cleaning up the brownfields for fear that it might unleash something else, right? But we need to have those brownfields cleaned up because they were a hazard. So you gave them some limited protections. And I think that's the kind of thing companies are looking for here.
Yeah. I think people are realizing vaccine mandates are not as simple as they seem. They seem pretty simple. They seem pretty, like they have some sense of finality to them. Like, okay, oh wow, we're finally going to get there if people. But now there's this kind of legal labyrinth, this web that people are going to have to maneuver businesses, and they're just
that's why I think the Biden administration has been pretty smart about this. They're kind of moving carefully in a targeted manner, and in those areas where they can act, the president can act on his own authority, and I think that's the right approach right now. Remember, we just got to get somewhere between 70 to 90% of the population. And so, more of you have these targeted mandates in certain places, the closer we can get to that number, it's, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah. So, right now, how we're doing at this point, I'm looking at doses, and this is fully vaccinated. It can't just be just one. We're just at 50.3% fully vaccinated.
Right.
This is slow going.
Oh, it is.
At what point do you think? This is purely now subjective at this point. This is speculative, but I just would like to get your thoughts on. At what point do you think that people are starting? You did mention that earlier. People are starting to now. Some people out there getting their shots. I guess it's because we're getting more and more news about people dying from Delta variant. People who didn't get vaccinated dying, and so some people are coming around, but a lot of people are not. Is it going to take the school year? Do you worry about that with schools reopening and just lots of children becoming sick, getting infected, overflowing hospital beds, and dying?
Yeah, it's very scary. I have a child that's under 12. I can't get her vaccinated. I would if I could. I know there's a lot of parents in those situations, and there's 50 million. So there's 50 million children who are not eligible to be vaccinated, and obviously, we've all heard that children are not as susceptible to this and have more resiliency. But at the same time, we're also hearing of these terrible tragedies of children that are hospitalized and are putting on ventilators and dying in instances, and it breaks your heart. One of the reasons to get vaccinated is you are trying to protect those kids out there from getting COVID, and because they can't protect themselves. And that is scary. And we are seeing, some of the school systems that have already opened up. We're starting to see, numbers. There was a recent situation in Atlanta where I think it was a fifth grade, big outbreak in a fifth grade public school there, like right away. So I mean, this is scary for people, and a lot of parents don't want these mask mandates, and the way to get past these mask mandates is to get people vaccinated. So
no, the other thing too, I had earlier, or I interviewed him earlier. We played the tape just a little bit while ago. Professor was talking to Education Secretary Miguel Cardona and was asking him, okay, well, what does the federal government do? What does the administration or the education department do if school districts are ready to impose vaccine mandates, but then they get pushback from a governor like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who says, who doesn't want them to do mask mandates. I'm sure once we're ready to give vaccines to children at the end of this year, he's going to do the same thing with vaccines. He's like, you cannot require this. And I mean, how could the Biden administration step into something like that?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer on that one yet.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a real challenge. The only thing you could try to use, obviously, I think that the most leverage you have is basically is a leverage of the purse, so to speak.
Yeah.
And is there some way of pressuring some of these governors, to do things? You've got to be careful, though, that you're not hurting, the populations that need it most at the same time. So it's a very, very tricky thing. Yeah. I think, other things the federal government could do is set up, vaccination, operations for kids in these states where they're making it difficult for kids to get this. But yeah, the mandate issue is going to be tricky. And I think the Department of Education is going to have its hands full, to say the least, in trying to get around this. And yeah, their big leverage is money and support. But it's going to be tricky.
Yeah, it really is. We've been talking with Paul Weinstein. He's a professor in public management at Johns Hopkins University. Go to jhu.edu for more information. And recently writing in USA Today an op-ed about vaccine mandates, about the need for that. We need COVID-19 mandates to reach herd immunity. Start by requiring vaccine proof to fly. So we invited Paul to talk with us about that. So keep track of that issue. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the insights and the analysis, Paul. We'll talk to you.
And thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Be safe out there. All right. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be right back with more Reality Check.
They're back.
Everyone's ready.
Platinum Shows presents the Dell Music Center Summer Series. Sunday, August 1st, it's Jeffrey Osborne. On the wings of love. Peebo Bryson. I'm so into you. And Regina Bell. Then Sunday, August 15th, it's the Basement Party with Big Daddy Kane. Baby Cool Mo D. EPMD, Nice and Smooth. The Sugar Hill Gang with the Furious Five featuring Grandmaster Melly Mel and Scorpio, Roxanne Shante, and Tough Crew. Then Sunday, September 5th, Labor Day weekend, it's the Party in the Park with the Whispers. Stephanie Mills. And After 7. Tickets available at the Dell box office and Ticketmaster.com. For more information, log on to ppshows.com.
Hey there, beautiful. Have you had severe hair loss? Do you have a scalp disorder? Is your hair thinning around the edges and crown? If you answered yes to any of these questions, give us a call at 215-225-2442 to schedule a consultation with Babes Holistic Hair Salon located at 3117 North Broad Street. Babes Holistic Hair Salon is dedicated to improving your inner and outer beauty. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation. James Schuler Boxing Gym presents Round the Way Rumbling, an amateur boxing event. Saturday, August 14th at 750 Brooklyn Street in West Philadelphia off 42nd and Lancaster Ave. First bout is at 3 p.m. Purchase tickets for $20 at jamesschulerboxing.com or call 215-399-7483. That number again is 215-399-7483. Let's get ready to rumble!
Reality Check with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media, joined WURD for the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. So this year we're celebrating West Oak Lane, Mantua, Northwest, and South Philly. Tiffany Bacon is going to broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Our next stop is North Philly, and we're at the Martin Luther King Recreation Center. That's on 2101 Cecil B. Moore Avenue. That's this Friday, August 13th. You can pick up voter registration information, meet special guests, and stand with WURD. Be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your WURD membership on site. That's the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. That will be at Martin Luther King Recreation Center from 10 a.m. to 12 noon Friday, August 13th. Please mask up, everyone, when you go to this event. Keep yourself protected. Keep everyone. Be considerate of other folks in that space. Be considerate of us, your family, friends, your community. Mask up. Also, continue to urge everyone, please get vaccinated too, especially before you're going to these events. Just to, once again, we're trying to significantly reduce the risk of COVID spread. And the way you do it, you mask up, you get vaccinated. And yeah, keep on washing your hands too while you're at it. So, you know, it's just very important. Let me go to Maurice out of North Philly, who's calling in for a reality check. Maurice?
Hey, Charles. I'd like to ask you a question.
Peace. What's happening? I got to reach out back to you. I didn't forget about you, man. I've just been overwhelmed with emails, but I did get your email. We'll talk soon.
Right. One of the things I want to ask you, Charles, you talked about the census earlier. It's like an echo.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it ain't me.
No, I don't hear one, but go ahead.
Okay. You talked about the census earlier. My question to you, how do you suggest we fix the census?
Mm-hmm.
With the problems going on in Black America, how do we fix the census? And number two question is, what are the census tied to?
Yeah, census is tied to about a bit over $1 trillion in money in federal dollars that's been specifically set aside or appropriated for allocation to communities based on those census numbers. So it's over $1 trillion now. I think it's like around like 1.3 trillion or something like that. So that's what that's used for. I mean, I kind of hinted at it. That's a very good question, Maurice. I like that. I kind of hinted at it earlier. I mean, one way you fix the census, or you maximize our participation in it, because really at the end of the day, the census, the extent of the census's success hinges on our participation, on our full participation, not half participation, not 3/4 participation, but full participation. And so this has to be a mobilization effort, a public mobilization effort. This is something that we as the community do like every year during those 10 years. Like, you know, what happens is, like, we don't start talking about the census until the year before. Like, I didn't start hearing groups like the Urban League, for example, talk about the census until 2019. They knew it was coming up in 2020. You've been knowing that for 10 years. Why you want to start and it happens like that every decennial census, where we wait until the last minute as a community to then start talking about it, and people don't know what you're talking about. So, you know, you have to insert that, you have to inject that as a mandatory conversation in the community that's nonstop, that's perpetual and ongoing. Like, to the point where, you need to even create like a special, collaborative or consortium, something that's national and it's just ongoing, and it's all about census mobilization here. So that's one. It's like, it has to be maximum mobilization every year. Like, it's like you're taking the census each year instead of every 10 years, and stop doing this last minute stuff, because it puts us. The other thing too is that we're going to need to demand that our elected officials, especially on the federal level, become more involved and active in oversight of the Census Bureau. So that's the second step. So, we're talking about, like, I think the listener who was on Twitter, she tweeted me, she made a very good point. Why every census we've been like staying at like 12, 13% for years now, for like generations. That can't be. That doesn't make sense. And so, but we know why that is if the Congressional Black Caucus, for example, would make the census count a priority, which they should. It's a lot of money at stake on the table, and it's also the census determines the extent of our political power and the drawing of congressional districts, right? Sure. And so I think that it's going to more rigorous and aggressive oversight of the Census Bureau to see how do you carry out these counts.
Can I ask you, have you look at it like this? When we do the census, you're right what you're saying, but we have to look at it on the other side too. Look how many black men and brown we have in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I want you to show you the shift of money that's supposed to come to the black community is shift to other people's community. How many black men and women have been killed in the last 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
How many people do we have elderly that's in the home, military, colleges? That's a collective body that's missing from the black community that's not counted.
Yeah, you're right.
Or it's counted in another population.
Mm-hmm.
So that shift that I'm talking about, because the census is tied to Social Security.
Well, they're counted like black men, for example, in the prison population. They're counted, but they're counted as a part of that community,
correct,
in which they're housed. So
correct.
if they're in a prison that's in a community that's in some rural, exurban, rural, majority white community, and people don't realize that that's where they're counted. That sparsely populated majority white county where that prison is, where those brothers are housed, they get the benefit of those census dollars, and they get the benefit of those dollars off the backs of those black prisoners who really technically aren't, well, they're really not being, they're counted, but they're not being counted as a full human being. It's a really sinister thing. And so, and that's one of the things, that's how they're able to pull off gerrymandering, political gerrymandering of correct congressional districts so well, is because of that. Oh, Maurice, thanks so much. I think we let you go. Oh, that's right. We have our next guest is with us now. We have Deputy Treasury Secretary Wale Adeyemo. He's with the U.S. Department of Treasury, and he's here to talk about the eviction moratorium and emergency rental assistance. Deputy Secretary, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. You're by phone right now.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. It was good to catch your last segment. Appreciate everything you do and for giving me the opportunity to talk to your listeners about how the American Rescue Plan can help them as they deal with the pandemic.
No, we appreciate that. No, thanks so much. So the eviction moratorium, we've got an extension for now a little bit less than 60 days. And so how does that work? How does that work? Because we still have the threat of landlords locking people out. So, I mean, how much does the eviction moratorium realistically cover?
Yeah, and I think, as you know well, and your listeners know even better than both of us, the pandemic has been especially tough on communities of colors and black communities. I think one of the things that the president pushed for in the American Rescue Plan was not just the extension of the eviction moratorium, but money to help people pay their rent. And we received billions of dollars that we've given to states and local governments that can help people who are behind on their rent. And I wanted to make sure your listeners are aware that in the state of Pennsylvania, they've already given out $80 million in rental assistance that's come from the federal government, and that your listeners who are behind on their rent or facing eviction have the ability to go to consumerfinance.gov/rent help to find out how they can get this money to help them pay their rent going forward. Because you're right, the moratorium will only last for so long. But what we want to make sure is that before the moratorium expires, people who are behind on their rent get this money.
So, moratorium only lasts for so long, but, was the the issue of or the threat of lockouts, because that's something that Philadelphia, for example, is dealing with. I mean, fine, the municipal court kind of put I don't know, a somewhat of a half-stepped stay on that, but it was like 100 people per week were getting locked out. So is that something that the eviction moratorium, was that considered? Is that something that's covered? Is that something that you all are watching very closely?
So the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, provided the eviction moratorium to protect people and keep them in their homes. I know that each one of our local communities, the courts are also taking actions to do that. Our goal and the president's goal is to try and make sure that people are able to stay in their homes during the pandemic. That's why the CDC put out the moratorium. That's why we're providing this funding. And I don't think there's any reason for a landlord to lock someone out, because the reality is that the money we have in the emergency rental assistance is money that tenants or landlords can claim in order to pay back rent, so that the landlord is made whole and that people can stay in their home. So part of our goal is to make sure that people are aware of this money, because I think that many, especially smaller landlords or renters, don't know about this resource. But frankly, it will allow you to pay your back rent for more than a year, and also to make sure that you can stave off eviction. So we want to make sure that people take advantage of this resource.
Let me ask you this too, because you were saying like $80 million, that you know of $80 million in rental assistance thus far dispersed. Out of that went to Pennsylvania, and out of that $47 billion, you rounded up, that's been distributed nationwide. But we're getting reports of like a place like Philadelphia, for example, really doesn't have enough federal rental aid to handle the number of applicants. We've gotten about 45,000 applications in the city of Philadelphia alone, and so they can only handle like barely half of that. They only have enough money for half of that. So will there be more money down the pike if a state like Pennsylvania or a locality like Philadelphia asks for more federal money because of high demand? Will you provide that?
So my understanding based on the data is that Philadelphia still has money in their account. You may be right that they don't have enough money to cover everybody who's applied, but our goal is to make sure that they cover as many people as soon as possible. So we want to make sure that money gets out the door as soon as possible. Congress gave us the authority after September 30th to reallocate some of the money that has been provided from rental assistance if cities and states don't spend enough of it. And our goal then is to look around the country and see places where either they're not implementing the program or they have a lack of need in their communities, and take money from those communities and put them in places where there's need. Of course, that will mean that we'll have to have seen people spend the money we've already given them, and I think that Philadelphia and Pennsylvania still have money that's available to your listeners and the people who live in these areas. So our hope is that by the time we get to September 30th, we're in a place where we see money out the door to people who are a threat of eviction, and then in places where money has not gone out the door, we're in a position to reallocate that money to places where there's still need.
Are you all tracking that? Like, what do we know? Because it's still unclear. Like, last I checked, just 7% of that $47 billion was spent, which is, I mean, that's just insane. And, people are rightfully so outraged about that. So, I mean, are you saying that, steadily increase more? And then you have the problem, Deputy Secretary, of there are a lot of tenants and landlords that don't know about this program. There's like this huge communications problem.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I'm here today, to talk to your listeners. And we're doing a bunch of outreach so that people know about the program. Because you're right that one of the challenges we face is that people don't know about the program, so they don't know to go to their local housing authority to take advantage of it. That's why we have the website consumerfinance.gov/renthelp, where you can put in your information and find out where you can get access to this program. In terms of tracking it, we're tracking it closely. Every month, we're requesting information from the people we've given money to in terms of how the money has been spent. Last month, I sent letters to places that hadn't spent any of the money, telling them that we needed them to make sure that their programs are working so people have access to it, and making clear that if you're not able to spend the money because there's not demand or you're unwilling to set up a program, we're going to be in a place where we're going to reallocate the money to places where there is need. So we're tracking this information very closely. We went back to mayors and to governors and to members of Congress to help us push to make sure the money is getting out the door. But the truth is that a big part of this is also making sure that the people who actually are renters and landlords know about the program, so they're actually demanding it from their local rental assistance providers.
Can I ask you why is this money going to the states and the municipalities in the first place, right? You know, because we've known for years that they can't handle this volume of money, or they're going to be slow, or they have antiquated systems. Why? How come the direct rental payments couldn't have been like included with direct stimulus payments or like the child tax credit? You know, just coming straight from you guys from the Treasury Department.
So you're right. Now, I'd love to spend a minute on the child tax credit with your listeners, just so we can make sure that they're aware about signing up for it. The reason that we've this program, Congress designed the program this way, was in fact because the truth is that in many communities, these programs are working well. Like you look at a place like Houston, Texas, where they've already run out of their money and they're finding ways to do this well. The key, as you are saying, is correct, is that in some communities they have well-functioning infrastructure like in Houston or Virginia or in parts of New Jersey, but in a number of communities they don't have programs that are functioning well. We know this because too many evictions existed long before COVID-19. I think Congress designed the program this way because they wanted to incentivize states and local governments that are doing this well to continue to do it, but also to get states and local governments to build up the infrastructure to not only prevent evictions now, but to continue to do that work going forward. But you're right that in some places it's taking them too long and the infrastructure setup is not working as well as we wanted to. That's why we're offering technical assistance to those jurisdictions to get them going, but also shining a light on it with their local officials, because ultimately we want to prevent evictions now because we're in a pandemic. But we also know that going forward, we want to make sure there's funding and infrastructure in local communities to help people who fall on hard times stay in their homes going forward. So that's why Congress, I believe, made the choice to have this go directly to state and local governments rather than to go directly to people from the Treasury Department, like the child tax credit or the stimulus checks.
Yeah, I think it's definitely prompts. There's reason to evaluate that a little bit deeper. I definitely want to welcome back for more conversation on that, like more efficient ways to do this, because it seems like, and we've gone through this time and time again, where we get these moments, emergency relief is appropriated and provided, is more than enough money, but then the money gets lost. Or like, I mean, in Pennsylvania last year, there were monies, before your administration, there were monies put on the table for rental assistance. A whole bunch, the majority of it was like 63% of it didn't get used, and it got reallocated to the state prison system, because of Republicans in the legislature in Harrisburg set that up. So we're trying to avoid that. One last question here: are you having a conversation with the banks? I feel like the banks, we talk about the tenants, we talk about the landlords, we talk about what they have to do. What about the banks? Because that's where the rent checks, the mortgage payments end up. And so, I mean, are you talking with the banks and saying, hey, we need you guys to back off for a while and stop putting pressure on people until we get caught up on this?
Yeah, and I think that is and I think from our standpoint, that really has to do with mortgages in terms of, and that comes down to like homeowners, but also to some of these landlords who have payments to pay. But ultimately, the reality is that while some of these landlords are small landlords who have 2 to 4 tenants, many of the buildings that people live in are owned by big companies that don't necessarily have a loan. And I think what we've been trying to do is address the problem in all places. One is make sure that the resources are provided to make sure that people can pay their rent so those small landlords can make their payments. But in addition to doing that, one of the things that we have done is working closely with regulators, working closely with institutions to encourage forbearance, and that's something that the regulators have been doing constantly. And going forward, I think that one of the things that we're focused on is making sure that people have a path to ensuring that they can either stay in their homes, or if they decide to make a move, that they have the resources to do that, and there isn't they don't have a mark on their record that makes it hard for you to get the next home. For example, as you know, if you are evicted from a place, it makes it really hard to get into the next place you're trying to go to. So trying to find a way to make sure that we.
So what about those direct conversations with the banks? And also, okay, so now that we're on that, like the credit reporting agencies, I mean, I feel like there's no pressure on them, so because this is where a lot of this all ends up, I feel like the banking sector and also the credit reporting agencies are getting off scot-free from accountability in this discussion.
Yeah, and I think there are, and I want to be clear, there are conversations with them about making sure that they're providing the types of forbearance that is needed given that we're in the middle of a crisis. I think ultimately the thing that we're trying to do is both provide forbearance, and that is both like in conversations with financial institutions, but also conversations in terms of making sure. That's partially why we've put together the CDC's eviction moratorium, to make sure that people know that our goal here is to ensure that people are able to stay in their homes, be they renters or be they people who have a mortgage through this crisis, in order to make sure that they don't have to leave during the pandemic. But the thing we're also trying to do is not only try and make that demand through the moratorium, but also provide resources so that people have the money that they need, not only through the eviction moratorium, but you mentioned it earlier, the child tax credit. And for a number of people, they're making choices between how do I put clothes on my kids as they go to school, or pay their rent, or pay the utility bills. And we want to make sure that they have the resources to make sure that their kids have the food they need to eat, have the clothes they need as the school year starts. And that's why we think the child tax credit is so important. And for your listeners, if you have a child under the age of 17, but you haven't been receiving a child tax credit, I want you to go to childtaxcredit.gov to see if you are eligible, because we want to make sure that you have the money you need to invest in your children, because we recognize that investing in your children is investing in the future. So we've attempted to attack the challenges the pandemic has caused through regulatory policy, with financial institutions, through providing resources to people, through creating moratoriums. And we know that there's more to be done, and we're committed to doing it, but we know that we're going to have to do it in partnerships with states and local governments, with community organizations going forward. And I just wanted to come on to let your listeners know about the resources we have available to them.
We've been talking with U.S. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo. He's been joining us here. Go to treasury.gov for more information. Really appreciate this, Deputy Secretary, and I hope we can get you on next month for an update.
Would really appreciate coming on, and thanks again for giving me the opportunity to talk to your listeners. Hope you all I hope you all take advantage of the opportunities that we have to provide you with resources as you work to make it through the pandemic. Take care.
Hey, take care. Thanks so much. Once again, we've been talking with U.S. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo, joining us here. He's right under the Treasury Secretary of the United States, treasury.gov for more information. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Get in and get seen at the Einstein Orthopedics Fracture Care Clinic. If you think you've broken a bone or have been told by your doctor that you have a fracture, the Einstein Fracture Care Clinic offers same-day, in-person, or telehealth appointments. We don't just give you peace of mind. Einstein Orthopedics provides answers when you need them. Visit einstein.edu/fracturecare to learn more.
Tune in every Saturday at 4 p.m. for the Did You Know Show with host Bryant Green, right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM.
WURD Radio Digital Tip of the Month with Stephanie Humphrey. Brought to you by Comcast.
You might be enjoying the hot days of summer, but your smartphone probably isn't. Hotter temperatures can potentially damage your phone, so here are some things you can do to keep it cool. Don't leave your phone in direct sunlight or locked in a car if possible. And if you don't absolutely need it, ditch the smartphone case too. That can easily trap heat. Change the settings to lower the brightness, turn off data, put your phone in airplane mode, or try to do less high-powered activities like gaming. If you do notice your smartphone overheating, turn it off and take out the battery if you can. And don't try to cool it down by putting it in a refrigerator or freezer. Just keep your phone in a cool area for a while until it returns to room temperature. Stay cool, stay tuned to WURD for more tips, and stay connected with us at wordradio.com.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get barrier-free COVID-19 testing and vaccination this week. Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue, Tuesday, August 10th and Thursday, August 12th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturday, August 14th from 12 noon till 4 p.m. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Want the
the latest in word swag?
Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black.
Talk media. Reality check With Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio and WordRadio.com.
Okay, WURD, Progressive Black Talk Media. You just got an exclusive interview here on Reality Check WURD with Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo. So number 2 at the Treasury Department, treasury.gov for more information. I've also had an exclusive interview earlier on this Thursday edition with Education Secretary, U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona. So more to come, and looking forward to giving that to you here on Reality Check WURD. So phone lines are open. Let's get to it. Brother X out of Chicago is calling in for Reality Check. Brother X, peace.
You got me, brother?
I got you.
With all due respect, my brother, many people don't think Brother Rick's advice is the worst advice that can be given. Some people said Garvey Back to Africa movement was the worst advice. But the white man didn't think Garvey Back to Africa movement was the worst advice. That's why they took him down. But if they hated us so during Garvey time,
I think but Garvey had an organized, structured movement he was trying to put together. So I could get down with something that was Garvey-like if it was like, okay, hey, I'm an institution or I'm a major, well-funded movement here that's looking to take care of a collective group of people. But to tell people, oh, hey, you know what, get your bags packed, get your money together and move out. I mean, that's not a plan. So Garvey had a plan. So I think there's a big difference between Mr. Rick and Garvey. Garvey had a plan. I actually and it was a plan also based on Black diaspora collaboration, and I'm down for that.
I got that, but do Rick have a right to call in and voice his opinion? Now,
I know that, and I let him. And I have a right, and I have a prerogative. For Brother X, in all due respect, I do respect you a lot. I have a right and a prerogative to then counter that. Like, if you come on here and you voice an opinion, and I'm going to disagree with it, or if I feel like it's spreading disinformation, I'm going to check it. I have a right, and I have a prerogative as the host of the program to do just that. Some people probably don't think I should. But I'm not. First of all, I'm not going to have disinformation being spread on these airwaves like that. That also puts the outlet WURD at risk. And I know people want Black Talk Radio to still be around, but there are certain people, regulators, who listen in on that kind of stuff, and they're like, oh, it seems like the station is not keeping that level of disinformation in check. So that's one. And then two, yeah, I mean, if I disagree with you, I'm going to probably take a moment to check it. So if you can't stand the heat, don't be in the kitchen.
I have no problem with that, Brother Charles, but Mr. Rick was voicing his opinion. I was just saying he has a right to voice his opinion. Now, let me say this. Malcolm X told Dr. King in the early 1960s. Malcolm X told Dr. King, brother, I know you mean well, but this is not a civil rights struggle we find ourselves in here. This is a human rights struggle. That same thing applies today. We're fighting a human rights struggle, and we think it's a civil rights struggle, and that's why we're not getting anywhere. It's a human rights struggle, and that's what Brother Rick was saying. Now, look, Geronimo told them
it didn't come off that way. Let's put it like that. I'll say it did not come off that way. The way you just framed it, I like the way you just framed it, Brother X. I did. The way he framed it and some other folks are framing it, I got issues with that. That's that layered, thick pessimism, and that's not a plan. That's not going to get us anywhere.
I got you. Let me say this. When the Indians made the final treaty with the Great White Father, Geronimo told the Indian chief, man, y'all crazy to trust Paleface. I am out of here. He gonna kill all of y'all. Who was right? Geronimo was right. But a lot of people said Geronimo was crazy for leaving. And then the white man ended up slaughtering them en masse. But Geronimo, they caught him, and he died in prison. Now, Charles, we are in a crisis here. They are finished with us. All the wood been chopped. Hey, all the cotton been picked. We're not needed anymore. There was no plane brought down no World Trade Center. The old building was blown up. People see it right on video, and they still can't see two skyscrapers being blown up. They blew up the building in Oklahoma. The reason they are doing this, they are creating an atmosphere of chaos. Things gone crazy. Because in an atmosphere like that.
So, Brother X, on that point, like, then that's all the more reason for us not to be chaos agents, right? Like by spreading disinformation and also getting engaged in a conversation where we don't have a plan. Because even when you mentioned Geronimo ended up dying in prison. Didn't have to be that way. So, Geronimo's like, I'm going to leave y'all behind, dude. But it's like, I mean, did Geronimo have much of a plan, right? In terms of like a big structured collective mass mobilization plan, whether it was armed or otherwise, to, save a maximum amount of people and to, you understand? So it's like, like with Garvey, there's a big difference. Garvey, God bless him, and he tried his best. And I like that philosophy of like, I'm going to raise money. I'm going to put together a structured effort. Here's a plan. So certain people had a plan. Even like Malcolm X, after a while, he evolved into a plan. Okay, we need to put a global plan into action. Some of these folks who are spreading disinformation, like we're not even having a conversation, or they don't want to have a conversation. There's pushback when we even start getting into like, how do we collectively as a Black diaspora attack white nationalism, counter it, and also put ourselves in a better position, in a better quality of life, in a better condition. But I think you and I on some levels are on the same page. I'm just all for planning. I don't want to just say, oh, things are messed up, and so okay, time to bail. I'm like, because you can look at Geronimo. You can run as far away as you want. It's going to the crisis, the chaos is going to catch up with you. So now we got to figure out what's the plan to handle and manage the chaos that's right in front of us. Because everyone doesn't have that luxury to just like move off to some faraway place and get away from the immediate moment of crisis. One, the crisis is going to catch up with you anyway. And then two, most people don't have those kinds of resources. So like, let's look at the situation now in a place like Chicago or in Philadelphia, or whatever. What do we need to do? There's a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunities we're missing. I got to let you go, Brother X. I always appreciate you. I appreciate you listening from Chicago. Please tell my Chicago brethren and sister to best regards from Charles Ellison. And so I do love you all up there in Chicago, especially on WVON. And I appreciate you. And I see your point. But I think it's a conversation that we should continue to have. The Source is coming up next here on WURD. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and thanks for all the conversation. I see some spirited discussion going on Facebook. I do appreciate that at the end of the day, because people are listening and people are talking and people are thinking too. So, but let's plan for some action. All right, what's the action? What's the plan? Because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. All right, I'm Charles Ellison here on this Thursday edition of Reality Check. God willing, I will see you Monday, 10 a.m. sharp. I want to thank Troy Wilmore, too, for everything he's doing on the board of steel. And thank everyone else, Philly and all of y'all beyond. Please stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, stay safe. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you next week.